Do. Da da do. Da da do.
You know, it was back in the time before COVID and before we could still leave state lines. Before there was this whole thing with the president or something. It was just three boys on their way to a city. Unfortunately, it was just me, Jesse, and past and future guest Nick. Brandon, he wasn't there. I don't remember why. I probably couldn't get off work or something. It was simpler times back in 2019 when we had to go, just meet Michael Mann and see The Irishman, Martin Scorsese's latest feature film. It was a magical experience for all of us, and truthfully, it's the reason we're all sitting here right now, and why I'd be talking to you anyway. If it wasn't for The Irishman, then I wouldn't be here. I don't know. Fuck. I heard you paint houses. I feel like I had more. I feel like I had more thought out, and I forgot all of it.
I mean, if that was all from the dome, good job.
Yeah. Thank you.
But it sounded kind of scripted.
Yeah, I thought you might have wrote that.
No, Steve Zalian might have wrote that.
I mean, it is something that you guys literally did, so I guess you didn't have to
Yeah, but I thought I was gonna do more. I was gonna make it more dramatic. I think I had like a thought, like an outline in my head.
Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome, Robert De Niro. That was real nice of you for doing that introduction.
Thank you for coming on for those couple
The most
seconds.
special episode. Thanks.
Yeah.
Bobby.
We did it for you.
He's making the face.
Yeah, you fucking know the face.
So,
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Chronic Canon.
I'm Brandon.
I'm Jesse.
I'm Frank.
This is a podcast where we smoke movies and we talk weed.
We are live in our ears, but not in yours.
And if you don't like Heat, you have to go.
And
gotta get the fuck
Heat
out.
being Michael Mann's 1999 film.
1990 what?
1995 film.
Yeah.
Yes.
Heat.
We're saving you the trouble.
If you haven't seen it, that's cool though. That's fine. No biggie. But if you actively dislike this movie, Heat. Or if you don't like The Irishman either, get the fuck out. It only matters for this episode, sure.
Yeah.
But if you don't like this movie, then do not
Fuck
listen.
you. Fuck you.
We enjoy
Fuck
this movie.
you. I'll break your fucking kneecaps if you stay.
The first thing
Is
I thought
that
of as to
illegal
why
for me to
someone
threaten
wouldn't.
someone?
Put him in a headlock. What time are you going to be here tomorrow? 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock.
It was very visceral, and I was thinking about why someone wouldn't like this movie, and I was like, oh yeah, the white male rage thing. And as soon as I said that, he said, I'll break your fucking kneecaps. And I went, well, they might feel a little bit justified right now.
I just feel like the sassy energy is pumping through all of us. Just like the fact that you could bust out, I'll break your kneecaps that fast.
Dude, I was dead at work today. Dead at work, like just a shell of a man, like I usually am, just slumbering around.
Sounds like the Irishman.
And in my car, on the way home, couldn't stop just like screaming. And I was like, at one point I was like, what's going on? Why do I have all this fucking like energy? And I was like, it's the Sassy. He's breathing his life into me so that I can get ready to talk about this fucking movie.
Yeah, but he also drained the life out of me. We should
Every other fucking
clarify.
movie, it's okay. Every other fucking movie of his ends up draining your soul. So, it's fine.
none like this though.
Nah, not like literally none.
We
Maybe
made a
Raging Bull comes close.
We made a promise on the Silence episode that we did not keep. Or we made a lie. We made a goofing. We said we were going to immediately record after watching.
Hey, we tried.
No, we didn't.
I was ready.
Mentally,
Hey, I said, put a microphone in front of me. I'll do it. It's just going to be sad.
You know what? You say you could do it. I didn't want to do it with you like that.
Okay.
And no one wanted to hear that. There was no way that any of you listening would have wanted to hear that.
There's a little part of me that wishes we did it. We were all emotionally drained. Everybody was dead. Nobody wanted to talk. It was very
so
sad
tired.
energy in the room. He was fucking so tired.
Yeah.
I mean, tired of life.
I'm tired of living.
True that. It was a fucking depressing movie. Wait, we forgot.
Yes.
Okay. So we're recording this 2 days later, as closest to it as we could. And we're still doing more Irishman, don't worry. And we spoil lots of movies.
And we
Like a
didn't even
lot,
clarify that
including
we
this one.
specifically spoil Scorsese movies.
But also all movies.
All movies
But
are
yes.
subject to spoiling,
We
but
have-
Scorsese movies are very prominently spoiled on this podcast because we are in the middle of our, we're actually at the end
We're at the end.
of our Sassy
We're
sessions.
done.
That's crazy. We've always been in the middle.
I'm so used to saying it now. I'm just like in the middle of the Sassy session.
The people sitting at home, if this is your first time listening, just so you know, He's got 25 fucking narrative feature films.
Yeah.
25.
Well,
We started
fiction narrative feature films.
fiction narrative feature films, documentaries.
That's redundant.
I don't think narrative necessarily means fiction always.
Documentaries can be narrative.
Okay.
Those are like the bad ones, but they can be narrative.
Narrative driven.
Yes. So
Um,
25 feature fiction narrative films.
we started in January, folks.
Yeah.
January. And if you have been with us since February when we started releasing
It
episodes,
might have even been March when we started releasing.
March is when we
Releasing?
released.
if
It was
you've
like
been,
right before COVID that they all started coming out, and we had like 6 on backlog. And I was like, I have like 6 weeks now that I can just sit on this material and not have to worry about editing anything.
Mhm.
And I'd just edit in big bursts because we'd backlog a bunch because we'd only be able to get together like once a month when we could sneak out during the stay-at-home order to get together. And now we're here
Listen,
at the end.
I just Googled, can a documentary be narrative? Which is funny. But the first thing that pops up is literally Martin Scorsese documentary verse narrative. Synergy. Thanks,
Hilarious.
Google.
Thanks, Google.
Thanks, Google. Is that why you clutched your heart?
Yeah. I was like, Google knows what's going on. Which maybe I should be concerned, but that's not the point. I
We've
do
always
Google.
known.
I Google
Yeah.
a lot of Sassy stuff.
Everything. Not
I
the
neglect
sassy
to think
stuff.
that it's weird when like things that I like pop up because I'm like, oh, cool. Like most of the time.
Yeah.
Like, fuck.
It apparently no. Narrative is story and script, and documentaries capturing what happens.
Well, thank God.
Thank Sassy, who is the
What's the
filmic god.
difference?
He's the god of our
Ramen.
podcast. Our podcast. Fuck.
Yes, the God of our podcast.
If he's the
chronic
God-
canon.
Who's our Jesus? Who died to make the podcast pop?
Howie.
Nick.
Nick.
Nick's our Jesus.
We're not killing Nick.
What are you talking
I wasn't
about?
supposed to kill Nick.
No.
Nick, if you're listening to this is probably really weird for you. Am I dead?
You're
right
safe.
Nick.
You're safe.
If you're listening to this, they saved you.
now? Nick, we are transmitting from the year 1999.
Just remember, you have a good friend.
One.
See what I did there? I was
Yes.
doing that. Oh shit. Sorry.
Yeah, get that shit out of
I
here. Get the
muted.
sound
Fuck off.
effects out.
How dare you?
This is supposed to be the best podcast we made.
Most well put
In
together.
representation of the best Scorsese movie, which apparently is a disputable topic now. But I don't know. I don't want to get into it too much because I'm going to
Why
get
not?
real upset.
We gotta listen, folks. This is the special one, no matter what. Even if we're not all about to agree that it's the best or whatever.
This might be your first time listening to this podcast, and this is going to be an intense one,
You
I
know,
think, maybe.
This is the reason we did this. That's what I was trying to allude to in my weird monologue. This is the reason this podcast happened was we saw The Irishman, our minds were blown, and it was like, we got to start. We got to talk Sassy.
Yeah. Even though Brandon wasn't there in the initial viewing, which did you mention already that we watched The Irishman on the year anniversary of our first time seeing it, Frank?
I think I might have mumbled that somewhere in there, but
Cool.
we definitely
You
mentioned
said
it on
we're here. You
silence.
said we're here 1 year later.
Yes. I think that's what I'm trying
That does
to imply.
allude to that, but we didn't say specifically.
Yes.
I did think that was special.
Yes.
I
Yes,
didn't
me
go to
too.
New York because I couldn't afford to.
That's why.
Yeah.
Damn. I
Couldn't
was
remember.
sitting
I
at
literally
work
asked
like,
him the other day, like, why couldn't he go?
why were you there? That's dumb.
It was
No
dumb. You
money.
should have been there. But regardless of the point, when you went and saw it with me a few weeks later, your reaction was the same. Equally as moved,
It's a very good movie.
to put it mildly.
It's a very great movie.
What's happening?
You literally
It might
what's-
be the very best.
What's going on?
We got to
What's
talk
going-
about it.
all right,
we
what's
spent,
up,
shop here.
we
What's
spent
up?
24 episodes.
You don't know shit about Chop.
You can't whip that out with no warning. You
Sorry,
can't
that
pull
was a
Jonah
sassy
out.
in joke. Hi, Jordan. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Jonah, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, it's fucking hot. Captain Ted.
All right, listen.
Come
Is
for
the
me,
Wolf of Wall
daddy.
Street
We
the
spent-
best one?
That was for
Stop.
you, Jordan.
We spent 24 episodes hyping this up, all agreeing that we knew this was number one, talking multiple times about how the true intent was to just convince everybody this is the best movie ever, that Sassy finally figured it out. He's a masterpiece, like maybe one of the best movies ever made.
Maybe.
What happened? Because as of 10 minutes ago, I feel like I was blindsided that you, Brandon, motherfucking, I want to say last names right now. I don't know why.
I Jesse.
Motherfucker, I'm Frank,
Me, Brandon.
fucking might not agree. What's going on?
There's this little movie where for the whole movie you're rooting for this guy and he's going on the right track and you're like, come on, man, you can do this, and you see him make some mistakes, but for some reason
Are you going to Boston?
you just want to see him win, and then you do. You think you're on the same page. Everyone's together, everyone's happy, and then pow, right in the head.
Yeah.
I'm shooting myself in the head right now. This is a full 180. You didn't expect Howie Blaine to go down. Maybe Brandon thinks The Irishman is redundant. Maybe he thinks Scorsese has done it better in both Goodfellas, and maybe this movie made me think Casino's the second best Sassy movie ever made behind Goodfellas.
What the fuck is happening?
But it didn't do that. Jesse, Frank,
Yes.
Sassy figured out what he's been missing in his mobster movies. And here's why I compare it to Goodfellas and I compare it to Casino. And this, in hindsight, has literally made me like Casino more. Because I think, the only reasons I did like it were because I was like, all the elements of Goodfellas are there. So it would be kind of stupid not to like it. So I just liked it. I'll be honest. That's my opinion. And if you look back on the episode, that's pretty much what I fucking said. It was just like, yep, I like Goodfellas. Why wouldn't I like this? Never fucking thought about it any more than that.
Okay.
And I think that didn't do the movie justice. But hear me out. Contemplative. They let you sit and they let you think about it. They let you do it for a lot longer in The Irishman. But at the Casino ending, it's just Ace. Ace is all he's got. And all he can do is look back and think of the good times. And he'll probably die alone. And every day he's got to turn that key and be afraid of the outcome. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he doesn't have to be like afraid at the end because he's like, fine.
That's
Well,
the
all's good.
illusion.
Yeah. Are you ever really safe?
I guess, but in talking about it a couple weeks ago, I realized I was like, maybe that's why it feels like less emotionally resonant Casino, that is because Ace is not emotionally invested in what's going on. He is like a sociopath in the way that people describe Frank Sheeran as a sociopath, but there's literally less emotion there.
Somehow.
Because Ace Rothstein feels colder than Frank Sheeran to me. But I also think De Niro brings a humanity to this part, in The Irishman specifically, that he hasn't brought to these roles in the past. I actually think De Niro's rather pathetic through most of this movie.
Which movie?
The Irishman.
Well, so it made you like Casino more, but what about The Irishman?
I don't know. We have to talk about it.
Okay.
I honestly don't know where it lands because I think we've been not picking up on different things, but I think that there's something that's to be gotten that I haven't quite got yet. And I think that the point of this pot is to maybe open those doors and to open those eyes.
Did you repress what you got a year ago?
What I got a year ago was just that it was a dope-ass movie, but now I got a lot more context, man.
A year ago with no reference point.
Sassy is the master. He knows what to do behind the goddamn camera, and he knows what looks good. And there's more than one Sassy movie that I would give more than 5 stars.
More than 5 stars?
I mean, Letterboxd only lets you give 5.
I understand.
I'd give it 10.
So if the point is that we got to convince you.
You don't gotta convince
game
me.
on.
I know it's a great movie, but why?
Why is it the best?
Why is it the best?
Game on. Okay.
We might, wait.
Otherwise, what's the point of this episode? There's got to be a goal.
Yes, that is the point of the pot. That's quite literally the point of the pot. And then we might as well try to convince you if we're going to also try to convince the audience.
Oh, yeah. Well, if Brandon is the metaphorical audience in this.
And
I'm your everyman today.
But you're also a part of this. So.
Just curious.
Don't
So I
just
guess
sit there.
let us know, audience, if you agree by the end of this podcast that The Irishman is at the very least Martin Scorsese's best movie, and that maybe we helped in shaping that opinion. Let us know at thechroniccanon@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter at chroniccanon, where you can direct message us there.
Get at us! We take a while to respond because we're usually high and don't know how to use technology.
Yeah, remember that? We talk weed on this pot.
Yeah, and if you don't smoke, that's cool. Hang out, baby. Get high. It's kind of content high.
You get that content.
We were finishing our intro 20 minutes in.
That's how we do it. We split it up throughout the course that we don't want to do it all in one go anymore.
Yeah.
Seems redundant.
You go back 12 or 13 episodes ago, and you might hear Frank complaining that we do it all at once in the beginning. And that we should break it up.
It feels weird.
So,
doesn't feel natural.
So here's the deal, okay?
Yeah.
We're going to rewind the clocks back to things that we've talked about a little bit, and I'm going to try and brush over them. We've definitely covered the fact that Scorsese was a filmmaker whom, before seeing The Irishman in theaters a year ago, I was like cool with. I didn't think like he was amazing in the way that I do now, in the very grand sense of the word, but I've always known that he was a master filmmaker. Like, this is a hot take, but Akira Kurosawa is an amazing director. He's not one of my favorites. And I love quite a few of his movies, but there's something about his work that doesn't resonate with me in the same way that other directors' work does, but in the same way that I used to feel worse off about Scorsese than I do now, certainly. He's a god to me at this point. I could very well feel that way about Akira Kurosawa one day. And I love that the idea that watching a director's filmography and going through their history and seeing it from that frame can help morph your opinion over a person's work or as an artist, not just as a filmmaker or whatever.
I think with people,
The auteur.
yeah, of this caliber, and especially it helps that he has so many movies that we got to go through. It's like that's not just a filmmaker. You can't just relegate that to the medium. That's an artist speaking through their work.
Yeah.
Like 100%. And weirdly enough, I agree with everything you just said. Like, I have seen over 20 Kurosawa movies when me and Birdman were going through them. And
Birdman.
all of them, like almost all of them, I was like, yeah, that was dope. But that's it. Like 4 of them, I give 5 stars, you know? But it's like, it's not a favorite. He's just great at what he does.
Yeah.
And
there are a lot of directors who I can recognize how incredible
For sure.
they are at what they do.
And I would say
And just
Sassy
not care about the work.
100% used to feel like that to me, but has grown more. But I still kind of have a hesitance to say he's one of my favorites. Like, he is, but he isn't. He doesn't hit me hard in the same ways that the people I'm like, those are absolutely my favorites do. Where like every movie I'm just like, Jesus, and I want to do that. Where Sassy, it's almost like I feel this constant influence more than I've ever known, but I don't necessarily try to go to him for, well, maybe not. And then The Irishman changed everything.
Yeah.
Changes everything. That's the one movie where I'm like, this fucking one.
Well, and having
Give
the
me this
context
one.
of his entire career only made the movie that much better upon this watch. But I do want to say something, just to the credit of the fact that we haven't been able to truly go to the theaters in the way that we have in the past. We've been robbed of that experience sort of by this COVID-19 business. And watching The Irishman again here at my house, which granted, we have a pretty nice home theater setup, but it's not the same. Like the whole time I was like, the theater made this 1,000 times what it is, and it's still a behemoth. It's interesting because this movie is an epic, like in true epic scale, more than a lot of Scorsese's other movies, but somehow it's so intimate and confined. Like, it sprawls all over the place. Like, they go so many different places. I heard in some interview that they had over 100 locations and like over 300 scenes to shoot. That's a fucking insane amount of work to do. And they did like 3 company moves a day sometimes. That's fucking nuts, especially for the fact that they were shooting with 2 cameras. Each of those cameras had 3 lenses on. That's 6 lenses on the actors all at once. And the actors, well, at least Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and Joe Pesci, actually not at least, just those 3, are wearing dots all over their faces sometimes. And that's got to be inhibiting in some way. And this is fucking what you got? Holy fuck. And how old are you?
Christ. How old is he?
He's like, well, we said he's 77 now.
Yeah.
So that means that while he was making this, he was probably between 74 and 76.
Old man.
Old man. But he's rocking with that young energy still. It's so crazy that like Wolf of Wall Street was only 2 movies ago.
2 movies
in theory.
6 years.
Yeah, but that's nuts.
Yeah.
That's nuts. It's like the jump that he makes as a filmmaker between those films is something that other filmmakers take decades to do. He does it in 6 years.
It's kind of weird.
2 movies.
Like,
even the jump to silence. Fuck, what?
I thought that's what you were talking about. I thought you were including all 3 of those.
I know, but I'm saying even specifically between Wolf to The Irishman. Because in theory, those movies, when we talk about Scorsese as a true filmmaker, making the movies that he wants to make, the thing that he's best at doing, it's that kind of movie. There's The Mean Streets, there's Goodfellas, Casino, Wolf of Wall Street, and now Irishman.
Like, single character taking you through their whole, like, here's my rise and fall.
Yeah, kind of crime saga.
Saga, fourth wall breaking.
It's almost like a
Scorsese
Scorsese trademark. It's as if he's a band who has his own, like when you, it's shitty to say they're just the first band that comes up because they're not great. But when you hear an AC/DC song, you know who the fuck it is. You know what I mean? It's
what?
I don't.
Like,
I don't know, man.
it's just they all
Next
But,
time
sound
like,
the same.
Highway to
in
Hell
general,
comes on,
yeah.
tell me you don't know who it is.
Or Thunderstruck.
Yeah.
Or that. It's just, I guess.
Actually,
I
that's
don't know.
kind of like their most different.
Yeah.
Which is funny. That's the one that's like, oh, you tried something new. Good
Yep.
for you. Anyway.
Okay. When DJ Khaled comes on, you know it's him.
Yeah. Well. Okay.
makes you know.
When
He
makes sure you know.
ACDC comes
But hey,
on, do they scream AC?
Scorsese does make you know. If you've watched any of his movies, even if you're not studying him, if you've seen any of his work, especially his major stuff, you can tell from the moment go that this is influenced by the type of thing that he does. That long tracking shot through the nursing home at the very front is such a Scorsese move. I think I even said that when we first saw it. It's like, here he goes again. And I wasn't even that antiquated with him like we are now. I was just like, there he is.
And I often think that's something that people pitch as like a criticism against those movies we name checked, or even him as a filmmaker as a whole, because people don't like to acknowledge that he is literally one of the most diverse directors we've ever had, which is literally insane because he gets relegated to these 5 because they're like the big ones because they have this style that people just immediately latched on to being like, that's a Sessi. And so like almost everything else kind of gets forgotten because it's like, right, he just Goodfellas again, right? It's like, yes, but no. And I think
especially in this case, no.
and we started talking about it a little bit last week, how Silence was like him tackling the religious half of himself. And now The Irishman is tackling this mobster or biopic or like macho man half of himself,
I think
whatever.
it's integrating it into that part of him.
Right.
It's making it one.
And it's got too reflective of a tone to feel like it's just copying everything before without the intention of trying to suck you in by copying everything before. Because I think there are 2 distinct parts to this movie. Like obviously there's like a lot, like 4 acts or whatever, but I think
4 or 5.
there's like the first 2 hours and then there's the last hour and a half, and they feel like one piece for sure, but they almost in my mind are operating as 2 different movies. The first 2 hours being the classic Sessi movie of like, cool, following this protagonist, getting to know his world, getting to see these like random long scenes and getting lots of montages of progressing time, and there's real world events and you get to know all the people, and it's
Violence.
Right. Violence, but violence dealt differently this time around, but still violence.
Yeah, I was
It's
gonna
like-
say it's. We've already talked about it on previous episodes, but the cold thing,
Yes.
like the
it's-
whispers kill, is big evidence to
Yes,
me.
it's all very like to the point. So it's like a more straightforward version in a weird way. It's like less bombastic while still having the wide scope. But then what makes it so special is that last hour and a half where he just like, let's take it one step further. Let's really look at the consequences. Let's look at the back half of life, which is something he has never actually explored because all those stories stop right when the person would hit that point at the like. I guess here it's actually like with 50 minutes left, but I still count the ceremony and everything as part of the shift.
I think
'Cause that
that's where it
feels-
becomes a yeah.
That feels like you're entering. It's a new world. It's the end. You've entered the end, and
It's
from
the
here
worlds
on out,
colliding. You've never seen Buffalino. You've never seen and Hoffa in the same place is what I mean.
Yes.
You've never seen Buffalino. You've never seen Tony. You've never seen all these. You've never seen dudes from both sides together.
Is
And this
that
dinner
true?
is how you do it.
You've never seen Buffalino and Pacino
Correct.
in the same room?
No, it's always over the phone if they're
Wow.
interacting.
Wow.
And I don't even really think they interact that much. It's mostly like once De
They
Niro's
never
in there.
talk face to face. It's
Other
like
than the
around
one
each
scene.
other.
Once De Niro was in with Hoffa, whatever fucking Buffalino or Tony has to say, it's De Niro doing it. I mean, the telephone when De Niro's going back and forth trying to convince Al Pacino not to fucking die. Anyways, when you were talking
try.
earlier, when you were saying that it's doing the same thing, not doing the same thing, but doing the same thing enough to pull you in,
Yeah.
hear me out. 22 Jump Street. 22 Jump Street, I think, is like such a prime example of how you can do a fucking sequel. I
Yes,
think
I
that
agree.
the way that it works is like, ha 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 ha, we're doing the same thing we did in the first movie, but like they're also adapting onto those things. They pull you in with the, oh, they're doing the same thing, and they make you more jaded, and then you're surprised by how new and different it is, while you're also still kind of sitting there like, but this, they're doing the same thing as the first one. This is fucked up. Why am I laughing?
Yeah, but they're
Yes.
telling you they're doing that in that movie.
Right.
Sassy, I think is
Sassy is too.
Sassy. No,
Not
like
that
he's
directly.
no
Well,
man.
no,
he's
not
no.
that direct.
I just feel like it's not a secret to those who love Martin Scorsese how he operates, and I think that the things that he does in The Irishman are a huge shout that it's me. That hey, it's me. Hey,
What
it is me. This is a Martin Scorsese movie.
like the only way I can think to put it is I feel like Wolf of Wall Street. You read that script, and in his brain, he's like, "This is how you tell the story. Like this is the only way to tell it." And I feel like The Irishman, for some reason, it's a deliberate like, I'm going to tell it this way to get you because I need to take you somewhere you're not ready to go, and I need to trick you into following me. And it feels more intentional than instinctual. Where like all the other ones, I think it's like Ceci's brain is literally like, no, this is just how you do it. Like, what do you mean? Where this is him sitting there and going, wait a second. Maybe I can pull a fast one.
I remember
Maybe
when
something can change.
The Irishman was coming out. It was not a movie that I was like jazzed too hard about seeing. I was like, cool, new Martin Scorsese movie. Cool that he's getting back together with the old crew. Like, cool.
And
like,
add in Pacino.
And especially given the fact that fucking this is something that we've done so many times over the last decade. Like, the gang's getting back together for one more ride. Like, and they're usually bad. Like, usually. And then Twin Peaks The Return happened. And it was like, oh shit, you can do this well. You can do this really well.
That was a lot of years before.
Incredibles 2.
Okay.
But then I neglected to remember that Martin Scorsese is a master in the same way that I view David Lynch.
I see.
So I should have been just as amped about The Irishman. But I remember it threw me for a loop when Frank told me once, like before we saw it, like maybe a while before we saw it, that at early screenings at festivals and stuff, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. And I was like, what? What?
Yeah.
A dry eye in the room.
Not what
And
you're expecting to hear.
I just remember thinking that was so weird. I was like, not what? Okay. Interesting. And that right there got me like invested in wanting to see it more directly.
I also remember the trailer being like solid.
Even though it fucking the Robbie Robertson
I know.
music that he uses, it's so bad.
Hey
Like,
man,
trailers fucking suck.
I remember you both being very hyped
Yeah.
for The Irishman.
It just looked like
I
it was going to
became-
be a fun movie. That's the way it was
hype.
advertised.
Yeah. I became hype up for sure. I mean, I've been hype years ago when they announced it, and then cooled for a while for what I think silence cooled me down. Being on Sassy, being like, I don't care what you're fucking doing right now.
But you love Silent.
Now I do. No, I do not love it. I think it's great, but I did not think that it was great when I first saw it. But I think the trailer brought me back on board. Plus, our newfound adoration of Heat, I think, was just like,
yes.
Bobby, Al, come on, that's
Yep.
awesome. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to be fun.
And it's the first time Al Pacino worked with Martin Scorsese,
Yeah.
which is really insane.
They
Even though
tried.
it's like
They
The
tried.
Irishman's been out for a while, like, and it's been talked about to death. But like, that's crazy. They never worked together, ever.
You'd think,
I mean, I know that there were movies in which it was talked about. I think
Jimmy
we've probably even
Conway.
talked. He was talked about for Jimmy Conway. that's right.
He was asked, and
That's
he
crazy.
couldn't, and he would not have been good.
No, it would have been bad.
That's the De Niro.
De Niro
I know,
reluctantly.
but-
Pacino could not have. Think of the sunshine of your love shot.
Yeah,
That's the test. Pacino would look silly like a grandma. We'd be laughing.
De Niro kind of
but
reluctantly
he was
took that
younger
part,
back
right?
then. He might have been looking hot.
I thought
No.
he was kind of like, I mean, all right, sure.
For Conway.
Yeah,
I think so.
I don't think he cared that much.
He's great.
He's like, yeah, he does the best that De Niro does, basically.
Do we
That
talk
is not Conway is not a selling point of Goodfellas.
No, it's for sure not. I think he's kind of like third best.
I just think
He's
doing-
actually like fourth
in a way,
best.
he's doing exactly what he does in The Irishman. It's just a completely different character and a way smaller part. So it's not as prominent of a thing with his performance, where it's like he is just being a great scene partner.
Hey,
the
we're
whole
both-
time.
We're both thinking Karen, right?
Yes. To double back real fast, yes, we're both thinking Karen. She might actually be the best performance in the movie.
Yeah.
Second, I kind of agree with Brandon more earlier that I feel like he's closer to Ace than Jimmy, but then again, they're all right there. They're all standing like holding hands, the three of them.
I mean, De Niro as a performer doing the thing that he does as a performer, not the
Right.
characters.
I understand. I think Conway's a little more dominant than being a scene partner. And I think Ace has more like scene partnery moments.
I guess that's fair.
Kinda.
He's got a commanding presence.
He's got a commanding presence, which is what carries him. So he doesn't have to be the like scene stealer. He's great in that movie. As much as I don't like it, I do think he's awesome in Casino.
There's not many movies where like De Niro is bad.
yeah. That we've
I'm
seen.
sure there are.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen him.
Deer Hunter, good movie.
I thought you were about to say it was bad.
No, good movie, and he's
Okay.
amazing. You know.
Yeah. I haven't seen it, but
that's
I know.
the army one.
Yeah. When do I talk about the dry eyes that you brought up?
No.
You said not a dry eye in the theater.
Talk about it now.
It's just like
Come on.
when people talk about this, it makes me sad that not everybody gets as sad as I do watching The Irishman. Because I'm like, am I crazy? I do that to every movie, though. When I start crying, I'll turn and ask you guys 100 times, like, is it crazy that I was just sobbing to that movie? It's like, no. And it's like, okay, I'll take your word for it. But not expecting it to cry to The Irishman at all. And in the movie theater, I think we've told this actually too many times, but I'm going to tell it again. Just as soon as those credits were rolling, I was definitely crying. Because I'm very afraid of death, and I do not want it to come. So I think spending like 40 minutes just being like, hey, buddy. It's like, no.
And then Action Bronson.
That's sad still. I don't know.
I know.
Out with the old, in with the new. It's brilliant casting. I was crying, and then I'll never forget Jesse going, hey, man, are you okay? And that making me sob way harder for whatever reason. I was just like, no. And matter of fact, I'm not okay. And being embarrassed because I was in a very public theater with hundreds of people around. I was like, oh, no.
I was just excited because they cut to black when I asked them to.
Hey, and nothing's better. But the second watch also started tears, not as many, but they were still there.
Well, I guess
This
I
was my
there for
third
the first
watch.
one.
Yeah, this is my third watch. Third watch. I do not think I watched the last 10 to 15 minutes of this movie because I was just covering my eyes, crying. I just couldn't. I don't remember what triggered it. I don't even remember what moment it was, but there was something that
might have
happened.
been the phone call.
No. That's way earlier.
saying it.
I think so.
What kind of man?
I think, yeah.
What kind of man
Jesse,
makes a phone
thank
call
you.
like
As
that?
soon as he said
I'm
that,
pretty sure I saw you throw your hands up when he did that.
I covered my face. I had one arm over my head, one over the eyes, and then eventually the face had to go in the shirt. And then when I thought it was okay, I came back, and then they went right back up. I just like couldn't. I was trying my hardest not to just sob on the couch with the two of you. I was like, I don't want to just like only bring it down. And I don't know what that is. I do know what it is. I'm terrified of death. This movie.
But it's also a beautiful movie.
I've never seen a movie literally do that, where you're just sitting with, like, that's all that there is left. This man has nothing. Getting old is very scary to me, and I'm afraid of living this life. And I understand that people talk about, like, he's such a unlikable protagonist, like he's a sociopath, there's, like, no personality to him, whatever. Like, I get it, but I don't get how you're still just not affected by, like, it's literally what Sessy's doing, I think, that makes me get so emotional. It's not the character. It's, like, just presenting the situation as it will be for literally everyone once you get to a certain age or a certain state of body. Like, this is your life now, and this is what we're all destined for.
Sociopath or not.
Sociopath or fucking not. Like,
I think that's what makes this movie that much better.
I agree. And I think it hits me even harder that it is this man who should be dead, literally, and has only lived a life serving others, and then literally has nothing and no one. And for what? And that is the ultimate question. For what? And I've never seen a movie, and I'm sure there are movies. Please literally tell me. Please literally tell me. But movies where it just sits and marinates in this for, like, at least 40 minutes, this exact specific state of, like, mind, or maybe it's only 30. Doesn't matter. But you had 3 hours of build up to that. That feels like a lifetime. You can't actually capture life in a movie, which is a big problem that most movies have. They try to emulate life too directly. And it's like, you can't actually summarize the human experience in such a short amount of time because life is complicated. But the damn near closest you're going to come is having 3 hours of look at this life, and then sitting for a half hour devoted to one thought. What happens at the end of it for everyone? And it just makes me lose it. And any movie that can make me lose it is a great movie in my book, and any movie that makes me lose it like that is one of my absolute top favorites.
I
Because
remember
there are not that many like that. I couldn't stop. The tears kept coming from the who makes a phone call like that to the fucking past the credits. I was still crying when they play The Still in the Night again. It's like, you motherfucker, you know what you're doing. What do you mean this isn't the best? I'm fucking pissed now.
He was looking at Brandon.
I'm Jesse.
Frank.
I remember not Sharon.
Sharon.
I remember.
I have love to give.
I remember when this movie ended, that being a very specific thing that all three of us, and the third being Nick in this case, were saying that was a life. That was just, it's crazy. I don't know how he did it, but that was literally a life. How do you capture a man's life in like 2 hours? Well, I guess you give it an extra hour and a half. I guess that's how you do it. But the other thing that strikes me as really interesting about The Irishman, especially compared to a lot of Scorsese's work, given that he's directly attempted this with a couple of his movies, but I think this is the most successful, like, novelistic Scorsese film. Like, this movie operates so much like a novel. It's kind of insane. Like, especially with the way it opens.
Yes.
Like, I'm always like guilty as charged for saying it, but like, I don't read much. I don't do a lot of reading.
That's fine. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
I mean, I read enough.
Yeah.
Anytime I pick up a book, it's always because I want to pick up the book.
Only reason you should do anything.
But it always strikes me as odd, especially given the fact that I watch like hundreds of movies comparatively to books, how movies will not start the way that most any book starts. Like even the versions of the book to the movie or whatever, the book is always it just throws you in usually. And that's exactly what this movie does. It like opens exactly on this. Just like, we're just in this nursing home. This guy's going to give us this brief little rundown of things that are going on. And then we're just thrown into this. It was the wedding. It was all set up. But it's going in the car.
And also brilliantly does it where it's a voiceover turned into the diegetic him speaking.
Yes.
So like purely showing this is from his point of view. Like in the way a novel would be. Like your narrator is him, but it's also still like him in the present of the movie.
Well, it's like Brandon said yesterday that it's like, this is a true story. And I was like, no, this is actually not a true story, which, I mean, an interesting point that we'll all talk about, the fact that the legitimacy of this movie, but
doesn't matter.
But the thing that Brandon said was he's like, well, yeah, it is a true story because Frank Sheeran did sit down and tell somebody this story. And at the very beginning of the movie, you're with old man Frank Sheeran sitting down telling someone the story. Yeah. And I was like, I guess you're right.
So it's his true story.
Right.
Visualized.
And I've always said that no matter the case of, because I've always even thought with The Irishman, only 3 times seeing it all the way through, it's a very believable story. Like, it's not far-fetched in any capacity. In fact, everything happens very simply and actually very matter-of-factly in the way where it's like none of it was actually that like crazy or intense or like, you know, the story was that fucked up. It's all the things surrounding the crazy thing that add to it, that make you care so much about this. Because like when Hoffa gets killed, it is just pop, pop. And he's out and there's no music, no nothing. Then we hold on that shot of him lying on the floor for a minute and that's that.
Like everything you're just saying supports each other. And I would say actually beyond Sassy, this is probably one of the like 10 or 20 movies that actually achieve a novelistic feel. Like beyond Sassy. I think most movies can't do that and shouldn't do that. But like when they can, there's literally nothing more powerful. Yeah. And I think it's because it feels even more like real life by basing it in something in memory, which is another hard thing to accomplish. And I think this movie
is a memory
nails.
film.
Everything's a memory. It's him recounting his story. Like, so it's all being recalled and it's presented in a way where it's like you're just recalling things. So it's not necessarily the most detailed or spectacular. It's just how it was to that person. And I think in that simplicity of like what's happening, you get the complications everywhere else, like you're saying. And that's like all those pieces just like do work together. And I think nothing appeals to me more in a movie than like successfully portraying memory, and like because it's such a tricky thing to do and it's all most people have to some degree, and it's like the most human thing you can do.
And I mean,
And it's
think
very
about how
weird.
well he does it in the sense that the controversy surrounding the movie about like Anna Paquin's character being given only one line of dialogue in the entire film.
Which she's also not in that much. I didn't even realize.
No.
Like I clocked it, I'm like, she's in like 4 scenes.
In
Like,
fact,
big
it's like
deal.
it could have been anybody, and if it wasn't Anna Paquin, I'm not sure if there would have been as intense a controversy
Right.
as there was at the time. Because I remember it was like kind of hot for a second.
It was. People are
Um,
getting mad that no women are good in Sassy movies.
Which I mean, fair point. Like,
But have you seen Goodfellas?
but
No,
at the
there are. It's just they're not predominantly. But we've talked about this 100 times. You should try to make movies about things you know about.
Yeah, especially because at least Scorsese is aware of that,
Yeah.
and he's very conscious throughout the making of all of his movies of
Yeah.
that
Though,
fact.
you know, I will say I understand
I
the
did too.
responsibility on authors of Hollywood to bring out things that aren't
Just a greater
aren't
issue
being
that
out
goes
there.
beyond filmmaking as an art form.
yeah, and I would never just blame Martin Scorsese
Right.
for that. You know what I mean?
That's what's absurd about it. Like what? Shut up! It's Martin Scorsese. Like that's not what you want him to make.
well, I mean,
Girls Trip.
I
Like,
saw an interview.
No, you
with,
don't. You literally. Well, I kind of do.
I was like,
That'd be
speak for
awesome.
yourself, there,
I saw an
buddy.
interview
Never
with
mind, Spring
Anna
Breakers.
Paquin who said that when Martin Scorsese calls, it's just fucking you go. Like that's at least that's the way she saw it. So it was like
Yeah.
and I mean I think that the way that role operates in the movie is so important. Like
Yeah.
if anything, you walk away from the movie remembering Anna Paquin because her performance is so
And because she says one thing,
specific.
Why?
Yeah.
it's powerful.
And I think that words are fucking dumb. Like I think fucking
Would you say
filmmaking is a
they're
visual
futile
medium.
devices?
Well, okay, words are futile devices. Thank you, Sufjan. And
leaving!
and I think that's what makes her character that much more powerful because when
Yeah.
she does speak, it is literally, and it's the simplest of phrases. Why? Why didn't you call Joe? That's it. That's all she says. But it's the
didn't you call
context
Joe
of
yet?
why she's saying it, the way she says it, the way Paquin performs it, the way that De Niro's character, like we said, Scorsese is the king of the headspace. We are locked in to Frank Sheeran's head in that moment. And I think it's so fucking nuts as an audience member to watch it because it is like it's like a roller coaster for 2 full minutes. Because I'm sure that's probably about how long that whole sequence lasts where he sits down and then has the phone call. Maybe 3, 4.
I was gonna say 3 to 4.
It's just brutal. It's beyond brutal.
Immediately after the kill, having to deal with the weight of the guilt of killing your best fucking friend,
The only person that actually gave a shit about you
and now
as a
you're
person.
with your family, and you can't tell anyone, and your daughter who hates you and loved him knows what you are, and then you have to go call his wife. I don't feel bad for Frank in that scenario. Obviously, it was like, right, you did this.
Yeah.
Like
I think it's just because of the weight of the movie, you feel the weight of what he's feeling.
you can. It's just
He makes you feel it.
It's impossible to be like, how? That's what I take from it. Is like, how are you sitting there?
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's like I kill myself.
Yeah.
What do you mean? How do you literally deal with that insurmountable amount of guilt and feeling and all of that? I think that's what I connect to because there is like a literal. Well, yes, because he's a human feeling emotions. I was like, there's a human emotion to it. It's like, duh. But it's like you can feel that. It's empathizing with the emotion, not the situation at all. That's so weird. I feel like this whole movie, I'm not even thinking about like what's happening. I'm just feeling it.
Yeah.
Is that
No, I'm
Is
with
that
you.
okay?
I'm with you on that, but I think that's because of the fact that we've seen the last hour and a half.
I'm talking even the first watch. Even the first watch, I was like, when I left the movie and the first time somebody was like, yeah, he's a sociopath. I was like, yeah, he totally is. But I wasn't like, absolutely. I had to pause for a second.
How
I'm like,
many
oh, yeah.
movies have we
Same.
watched and loved? Unfortunately, when you consider it, with the protagonist as a sociopath in some form or another.
Well, tons. But nowadays, at the very least, I know that 100% of
Right,
the time.
same.
But what I'm saying is like the Irishman.
You didn't
it
even
felt like
consider that?
it was just
I
like that
didn't.
wasn't what I was absorbing. I was absorbing just the feelings, and I think that's why this is such a transcendent movie. I don't know how he fucking did it, but
De
it's
Niro.
like it's all of it. It's literally everything.
obviously.
Thelma, Zalian, Cersei, and De Niro.
But being in the background the way he is.
I'm just sucked into what the. It's like the opposite of most things. It's not the what's happening. It's the I don't even know the how it feels. Like that's it. It's just like I feel it the whole time. Maybe because I am him.
No,
pop.
I think what it really is, and, even though it was your guys' first watch, you guys had some context
Oh, for sure.
of Sassy, even just a little bit, and even the mainstream, the main like idea of Sassy being like, this mobster, he likes his gang movies, crime, pow, pow, pow. Then we got to see the man who did it all, blah, 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 blah. And I think that when you know that's what you're being presented, you almost sort of go under it immediately, where you're just like, yeah, I already know that this is the gang stuff. You got to talk within the mob. I was like, oh, yeah. You got to be official, shake the hands. I hope he's getting shaken down. Oh, this guy needs money from this guy. Like, this is all shit you expect to see in the mobster movie. So you're not focused on the events happening themselves. I feel like the more movies I watch, every new movie I see, I go in with the thought of like, all right, but how would this actually be? How would this actually be? And so it sounds like that's what is happening when you look at The Irishman, instead of just going through the events of like, oh yeah, this is the basically the beginning of The Irishman is super, super close to the beginning of Goodfellas. Just like this bright-eyed kid who does a favor one time and now he's in this world. But, obviously there's some clear and stark differences, but you go underneath and you think about, all right, how would it actually feel to be presented with this opportunities? How would it actually feel to be in this life? And you latch on to those feelings more than you latch on to like Frank Sheeran. That's what I feel like.
Yeah.
And sort of just like, I don't know, when I'm moving, because no one like said it to me. I just saw it in a tweet because, obviously after the movie dropped, people were complaining, and I was seeing on Twitter that a lot of people said that I was just like, why do we want to watch a 3.5 movie about this sociopath? Martin Scorsese sat down, and I was like, he's a sociopath. And whenever I see shit like that, I'm just like, oh, I'm probably just a misogynist, and like have to look past that. And I always have to I feel like I have to like reevaluate how I view a movie after I found out that some people find it unsavory. And I don't know if that's something that everybody does or if it's like an insecurity thing for me where it's like I just don't want to have the wrong opinion.
I mean, everybody definitely doesn't do that, but I mean, I do it. You at least got to think about it. Like, okay, what do you mean?
So, when I saw predominantly women being like, yo, this movie's misogynistic, I was like, all right, well, let's go back and look. And I was like, you know what? Definitely a sociopath, but I didn't really get the misogyny part. Because to me, the Anna Paquin stuff, it hit and it drove home like really hard. And it's one of those things where you don't notice that they have such little lines, And maybe that's the bad part. Maybe that's what people are getting on. It's like she only has 4 lines and no one even notices. But like the things that she says sort of stick out more to me than anything that Pesci says, even though everything he says has all this weight.
Because it does to Sheeran.
Because it does to Sheeran.
I was going to say, I think what, the difference is, I don't know how, intentional or not, I think we're tapping into Sessy's perspective more than anything. I think we're feeling it through Marty more than the characters. And I even started thinking about Goodfellas, what is the difference? And I'm like, where he was at in life. That was a young man at his full bravado showing off. In a way, Goodfellas is the ultimate flex movie. It really is. It's just like, all right, fuck it. Here you go. Watch me make the best movie. And you just all agreed. Okay, I did it. Will you leave me alone now? And this is the opposite. This is an old man who's had it all. But what do you really have at the end? And it's the weird contemplative tone. It's not going full hog.
Your family.
And even Wolf, we kind of talked about it. That felt like the last of the young man getting out. It was letting it out of the system and understanding he's not that young man anymore. Probably making that movie fucked him up a little bit. Honestly, he probably had a hard time keeping up. All these young hot stars and this crazy cocaine movie. I remember what it was like. And then probably was like, fuck, it's not like it is today. And I'm out of step. And I still can do it. I still got it. But it ain't me anymore. Who am I? Because then he makes Silence in the fucking Irishman. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know the man's, and I'm speaking conjecture through movies, which is probably the last thing anybody should do, but I mean, that's what this whole podcast is. So,
well, it's all...
And maybe I'm applying too much, personal, well, that's how I would feel. Because I think about that. I'm like, that's my mentality. That's the way I would get from A to B.
I mean, this is what the best kind of movies should be doing. They should be inciting this kind of conversation, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Hear me out though. If
No.
the thing that okay.
No, go ahead.
If the thing that, the thing that we're latching on to is Sassy's perspective, and the things that we are latching on to are things that are under the movie, does that make it a good movie?
Yes, because you're still absorbing it through the movie.
If
Just like it's his headspace and like way of looking at the world is so ingrained that it comes through the movie.
right.
Like it's not like I'm sitting there going, Martin Scorsese is thinking about this scene. It's like I don't need to think about Frank Sheeran as a person because I'm just feeling it. And that is something that you can only communicate through the tools of cinema.
Yeah, well,
Right.
to that point, I think it's interesting that this movie, like, I think at a certain point, Frank leaned to me and said it, and I'd been thinking it the whole time, where I was like, right, this is just like a perfectly executed film in terms of filmmaking. Like, there is not a single millisecond of this movie that I would cut. Like,
It's the best they've ever done.
It is literally fucking perfect, like practically. Like as far as filmmaking is concerned,
Even
it is
Silence
working on
was
all
A
cylinders.
little sloppy sometimes. Like all his movies usually have like some tiny bit of slop where it's like, you guys like, did you
Nothing.
fall asleep at the wheel for a second? There's nothing here. I know some
people could make arguments for the fucking scene,
Or
or the
it's-
wide shot at the fucking grocery store,
Oh my God, shut up.
and the de-aging.
Shut up onto that too.
No, well, we'll talk.
Or the length.
Well, and the length too. But
Wrong,
see, the length
wrong,
is so
wrong.
integral. If anything, that's the thing that you'd make the biggest argument for, is that this
Yes.
is the movie that needed to be this long. If this movie was any shorter, it fucking wouldn't have worked. It I don't even maybe even a minute shorter, it wouldn't have worked. I don't give a shit.
I would-
all the shit that you get at the end is so important. Like him sitting with the fucking pills.
Yep.
I'm like, fuck me. Like
That's
I
why.
can't believe they did that.
Because you're not shying away from it.
Yeah.
I was listening to an interview with Thelma not too long ago around the time of The Irishman. Like, it wasn't just like a random one. She kept reiterating, like, we did not think it was going to be this long. Like, we did not intend for this to be this way. It's just, we made the movie and we knew it had to be. And then she also talked about, she's like, every movie, you have to watch it hundreds of times. Like, you go in the screening room, you watch the whole thing, usually with different people, and then you make your changes, whatever. And she's like, you get sick of every single movie, like, by the time you've, like, watched it that 100th time. It's like, of course. Like, I get sick of my movies after, like, 20 times. It's like, okay, this can fucking end. And they're, like, 20 minutes. She was like, never once. The Irishman, every single time. We were like, that was good. Like, wow. Good movie. Like, we did it. Cool. And she's like, I never got sick of watching it. And she credited specifically with all the performances. She's like, it's the best work they've ever done. Like,
Yeah.
all of them. Just, she kept harping on De Niro specifically. Like, I've never seen him do the things he's doing in this movie. And it's literally mind blowing. And I was like, see, Thelma gets it.
Yeah.
What about everyone fucking else?
It's kind of insane how people don't talk about it.
He wasn't
how
nominated.
Good De Niro was.
It's like you nominated Pacino and Pesci. So it's like you're acknowledging this movie has the merit.
All right, let's real quick.
And you don't fucking nominate De Niro?
Let's cover the Academy Awards attention for The Irishman just real fast since we're talking about it.
Nominated for 10 Academy Awards, directing, as supporting actor for both Pacino and Pesci, best adapted screenplay, best cinematography, best costume design, best production design, best editing, best visual effects, and best motion picture of the year.
And of those, it won.
0.
That sucks.
Not a single one, motherfucker.
Now, I remember
None.
that there was a large portion of time in the award season that year where The Irishman was the favorite to win
Yes.
Best Picture and a few other awards. But it's honestly even more of a travesty that De Niro wasn't given a nomination in any capacity.
If he was nominated, I'd consider them all winners.
Yeah.
Like, the movie won. I don't care. How did it? It's because people like Flash. People like Loud.
Mhm.
But then how the fuck did Pesci? Because it was different.
Because it was different and because it
And
was
he
like,
hadn't made a movie and like it
Yeah.
was his comeback.
Yeah.
But I remember when this was coming out too, before I saw it, people being like, Oscar bait. This is just Oscar bait. That's
What,
all
the
it is."
movie?
The Irishman, yeah.
Fuck them.
Being like, that's all it is. It's all just classic Oscar bait bullshit, doing all the same things they know are going to get him the gold. That's the only reason this movie exists. It's absolute horse shit. He tried for 10 years to make this movie. 10! And the interesting thing is, I almost think that it was fate that did that, in the sense that if they would have made this movie at any other age, I don't know if it would have been as profound. It's the
wouldn't
same
have.
way that we talk about, man, imagine if he made Last Temptation in 2016.
Yeah, instead of Silence, that probably
Yeah.
would have been the greatest movie ever made. Are you
Like,
kidding me?
Fucking insane.
like the silence level of quality, but the story of
And
Last
not
Temptation,
Andrew Garfield. Hopefully.
not still Willem.
Maybe Andrew Garfield is Jesus.
No,
That'd be interesting.
Robbie Pats. Matt, that'd be the craziest.
That'd be a crazy movie.
I don't know.
I
He'd be
remake
able to pull
Last
it off.
Temptation
How
with
many-
Robert Pattinson.
How many times do we look at Willem Dafoe and go, "You just look
You know,
scary"?
is Robert Pattinson the Willem Dafoe of our generation?
Like kind
Almost.
Like you're. Well, no, he's way hotter.
No,
than
I'm about to
Willem.
say people openly love Robert Pattinson so much more.
Nah,
Willem
people love Willem Dafoe.
Openly, we're just like, oh, Willem Dafoe, like you could fucking rail me anytime.
They used to in the 80s.
Did they?
Yeah,
For real?
big time.
Like, he was that
He
guy.
was
I mean,
the hottest.
he was in that Thriller with Madonna.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that I didn't think he was hot.
No,
No,
Body of Evidence.
Yes.
Body of Lies.
Body of Evidence.
Body of Lies is Leonardo DiCaprio and Russell Crowe, directed by Ridley Scott. Bad movie. Next.
It's not bad. It's fine.
Bad.
It's Body of Evidence. He has a sex scene with Madonna in '93. I think it was sometime around the mid '90s where he started to get a little weird, and then Spider-Man definitely ruined his image of being
Hangs
like
dong.
he hangs down.
He's got a very huge dick.
I'm just saying in general, he hangs dong.
Got
It's
a
like
huge
well known.
dick. The kind of Canon boys like dick in movies. We think there should be more.
It's stupid. If you're gonna have a naked lady, why don't show me a penis? You're gonna show me boobs, show me a penis.
Just do both.
Truth.
They exist.
Preach.
So that's what the Irishman is missing.
How? How do we get here?
We were
Dong.
talking about
Jesus
Jesus.
wishing he made Last Temptation.
Now, if
talking-
Martin
I was
Scorsese would have made this any earlier,
It would have
then
been
they
bad.
made it would have been bad. It just wouldn't have been good.
Well,
So-
it would have been good,
Well,
but
yeah.
it wouldn't have been fucking.
It wouldn't have been this. Wouldn't have been this. And they tried to make it 10 years ago. They've always wanted the same cast, Pacino, De Niro, and Pesci. And they've been working so hard to make sure that the technology was just right when they were going to make it in order to make sure that it was like effective, that it worked for the performances because they were physically too old. Like they wouldn't have looked like remotely right for any of the parts. Still don't, like in a way. But I think that's part of Sessi, especially since watching his career. It's like he's never given
Yes.
a fuck about age
Yeah,
ever.
It's
He's like
happened
a
in so
theater
many
director
movies.
in a way.
yeah.
Um,
There's so many where it's like this is wrong, but
Yeah.
it's fine.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna run with it.
Yeah.
So it's literally nothing new. And I liked your theory at the time, Jesse, of the like, well, if it's his memory, like,
well, yeah, I think I still stand by that.
yeah,
That
it's
I
like
think
his
that's I love
present
that.
day self is injected in there always.
Because, well, I mean, I just think about the way I look at the people in my life when I remember like times with you as kids. Like, I'm not thinking about like Kid Frank in my head for some reason.
Right.
It's still like
you,
current
but
Frank.
smaller,
Yeah.
but like
even like it's just strange. It's hard to explain.
Yeah.
You know, it works
I
in a
think
weird way.
that's everybody.
But I mean, like,
Truly.
it's got to be the way that you're in a way that's captured in this movie through the de-aging.
Intentional or not, it works.
Yeah.
It 100%.
And I think
works.
again, it's their performances that fucking sell it. De Niro's insane.
we gotta
he's-
just talk about him.
He's
Let's start
doing
talking.
he's doing the most subtle work he's ever done. And like I said, he's like pathetic. It's almost like every character he's ever played somehow wrapped into one, like in terms of Scorsese's work, but like he's drained of all of the extremities
You know
that
that
he's ever had. Like that he's like the loudest and most bombastic and like Raging Bull in New York, and Mean Streets and Cape Fear, and then there's the subdued De Niro, and this is like kind of right in the middle because he has his moments where he fires up a little bit,
Yeah.
but he never raises his voice really, except for the scene where he's telling Pacino that he's leaving because called him a motherfucker. But
barely even raises his voice.
Barely.
yeah,
People listening at home, I want you to think about your dad reading a newspaper and you asking him something and he says no. And he says no, the word no, and nothing else. And he reads his newspaper without looking up at you. I want you to think about that face. That's De Niro. This whole movie is the face of a man who just told you no, and that's all you're gonna get.
Well,
So what
that's
you're-
half
no,
the
because
time.
like I feel
What
when
you're
he plays,
what De Niro presents to you is all you're gonna get. You're never like, oh, he's sad about this. Oh, he's mad about this. Oh, you're just like, well, whatever he's doing, that's what he is.
yeah,
There's-
I think it's interesting that you can't actually get a read on him, and I think the only reason I'm confident in knowing what he's thinking in all these moments is because I'm confident that that's what I know I'm thinking, and I think that he is in its own way such a blank canvas. Yet It's like blank canvas, but it's somehow almost like an ink blot, or in the way that I imagine ink blots would work, where you project your own emotions onto him and then you just sort of see them form. And it's through De Niro that works, though.
I think I think it's half the stoic no, because the other half it's it's concerned. He shows his concern a lot. Like, I
big
think,
time.
and not just direct concern, like when he's trying to plead with Pacino or on the phone with Joe, or at the end when he is just sad old man. I think even moments like when they confront him about whispers, like there's that panic. You can hear that panic. Or even when
He handles that smoothly, though.
for sure,
He
but
does
it's
exactly
still,
what he's supposed to do.
it's still there. Like
Yeah.
you can. It's subtle.
Even in the scene
It's
where
the
he
way
goes up to
it's-
Bobby Cannavale and he's like, "Hey, I can give you steak."
right, or when the guy opens the truck and there's none in there, and he's
He's
like,
like,
I don't know.
I don't know what the fuck is
But
this?
like there's a second, there's like literally two emotions. It's like a uh-oh or like a fuck you. And that's pretty much it.
Dude.
Or nothing.
But I mean, I think the fuck you is adjacent to nothing. And I'm speaking in a broad
No,
generalization.
then even it feels like there's like this emotional edge to him in a way. Like I think about that scene where he and Pesci are talking for the first time over bread and wine, and he's telling him
So
about his
good.
experience during the war, and they're talking in Italian.
How do you know Italian?
It feels like Damn Yankees. It feels like the devil appearing to old Joe.
I don't see that.
Like
I see it as the one sweet moment of Pesci.
I don't know, man.
It's
Like
his one
especially
human moment.
because there's that one cut. There's that one cut where he shoots the Nazis into the grave, which I mean, also one of the most poignant scenes of the movie. Is like I never understood why they dug their own graves and they just kept going and kept digging, as if like they thought if they did a good job, the guy with the gun wasn't gonna shoot them, and pop, fucking takes them both into their own grave. But then the moment it cuts back to Pesci, and this is Pesci's performance being so good here, just the look
Smile.
on his there's a look on his face like, I know how I can use you.
Yeah.
I know this is it.
You're a soldier.
You are what I need. You are my boy.
Yeah.
And then like but then think about the end. If you consider that to be one sweet scene, and you think about the scene where he gives him the ring, if anything, that should be the sweet scene. But that's the scene where he's telling him, "Hey, look, man, you're killing your best friend.
That's why that's
and
not a sweet
you're
scene
here
to
now."
me.
Yeah. And then when he comes in, like, "I made you strong. I brought you," and he's like grabbing him and
Yeah.
touching him. It's like Russell doesn't touch people.
I know.
Throughout that
It's
movie,
a
much.
manipulative tactic.
Yeah, it's fucking nuts. That's like I said, it feels almost like Pesci taking on De Niro's devil role in Angel Heart, like kind of, and that's why he's so like dark and pulled back and low key throughout the course of the entire movie, is he's just playing this sort of evil presence that lurks in the background. Russell is an intensely scary character.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because he carries so much fucking weight.
Yeah.
You just made me think about like the perfect one too is, towards the beginning of this movie, Frank Sheeran being like, I don't understand why they still dug their own graves, like something else was going to happen. And then at the very end of this movie, him sitting with the FBI agents, not telling them what happened, because this is all he's lived for. Why is he going to give it up now? If he gives it up now, then it's like, all right, what was it for? I'm sitting here. So he's still digging his metaphorical grave by not revealing, everything that he knows. But it's because
And I
What
mean,
he's
the interesting
supposedly
thing is
did on
that
his
we know that
deathbed.
he does in the book. So it's like we don't see it in the movie. And in theory, we do see it in the movie because, like you
just
said, he's
watched it.
telling us.
We watched it.
Yeah.
The whole movie is him telling us. It's him
Except that the
finally letting it
narration
go.
does kind of cut out at some point.
Yeah, it comes in and out. It's not
Even
many
in the
times.
last 30 minutes.
I don't think it does then.
Because I
don't
know
think
that
it
there's a
does
certain
then.
point where there's really no music. They only use in the Still of the Night twice. And it's once you get to Buffalino's wedding.
Right.
And Buffalino
There's
being
there's
Ray
a
Romano.
couple. There's a couple times. It's not like the first part though. It's
Yeah, no.
far less. Like you
No.
could count on your two hands for sure, maybe even one. I just remember that you pointed out like, is there no more music for the rest of the movie? And then the Buffalino wedding happened, and then I know it happened again at least once before the credits.
It happened to Sheeran, or the credits. That's right. And Still of the Night.
But there was a time between where some music played.
Okay.
Point
no,
is,
I thought that
We'll find it out when we watch again.
Didn't we literally watch a video where they talk about the power of sound and how for 45 minutes Scorsese doesn't have music in this movie? For
Scorsese's
Irishman?
always been known. Well, I mean, Scorsese's just always been
I
known for
don't-
being really good with using silence in his films. Like the most punctuated moments of Scorsese's movies, the ones that people generally remember the most, are the ones that are the quietest. Despite
Because
the
he
fact
makes
that
loud
he's,
movies.
yeah, despite the fact that he's known for being so loud. It's like I said about the killings and stuff earlier. It's like when people say that the Irishman is just another Goodfellas or just another this or that, whatever. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, did you fucking see the movie? It's like when he kills Whispers, when he fucking they do, even when they do the biggest scene in this movie as far as like a Scorsese big set piece, like crazy energy scene, is probably the taxis in the river. That's probably the craziest this movie gets.
Or assassinating the dude on his birthday.
Well, I thought that, but even that, it's like it's
very
all
methodical.
It's methodical. He's in and he's out, and there's no music. There's no like crazy cutting, and there's not a crazy amount of blood.
It's a one shot though.
Yeah, it's all one
so
shot.
It feels a little big.
But
Yeah.
like,
But then
in theory, so is the kill where he stomps not the kill where he stomps the grocery store guy out. That is just one wide shot panning right to left.
Yeah, but that's like a wide. It's not like moving through the restaurant.
Yes, it's
or
definitely more
craning
complicated.
down into the taxis. Like, but even both of those don't feel that big.
I don't like that
especially by
scene.
comparison. Like, think about
What
when he
scene?
kills Billy Bats.
Right.
Like, that is like the
Fucking insane.
craziest death scene ever. And and then think about every kill in Casino.
Yeah.
And even Mean Streets.
Yeah.
They're crazy, intense, and bloody, and usually filled with music. And in this movie, it's literally always pop, pop, and you're gone.
Because the whole thesis of the movie is facing the reality of what this movie is.
Yeah.
It's what's the real life. How does it actually
Yeah.
feel?
I mean, he even says it at the end when he's talking to the priest, and he's like, well, don't you feel sorry for the families and like stuff? And he says, well, I didn't really know any of the families, so I don't know. Not really. I don't feel anything. I did know one. I knew one. And then like he kind of goes back and talks about something else. But that moment right there is where it says something. It's like Frank Sheeran was a soldier in that he treated everybody like they were just animals. Like he thought of it in that sense. And then when he finally had to do it to somebody he knew and cared about, it changed the game for him. It wasn't just,
He was
slaughtering pigs for meat, essentially,
he was trained to be that way.
It's like if you think about the Wild West, given the fact that Scorsese loves his Westerns, going back to John Ford, Sheeran is like a bounty hunter. Like people just sort of hire him to do their dirty work. He does it, and then he gets out and he gets paid. And that's literally it. The only difference being that he's doing it for like a specific group of people. And this is way more involved in politics and like all that other stuff. But we talk about the idea too that this movie is on the proportions of like a Greek tragedy or something like that, or even a biblical tragedy, like the story of Christ. Like it's the story of Judas, like basically, or at least to certain key roots. So it's a very classical tragic story. And it's interesting that it can operate on such a modern level whilst still hearkening back. Because I've seen a lot of people bitch about that with this movie too. Like, stop going back to the fucking past. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, can't we just fucking talk about right now? Like, why do we fucking care about the past and the men of the past, specifically? And I think, if anything, this is one of those movies that is necessary for the future, just like as a document in a weird way, but also just as a document of the testament of how great cinema can be. This is the power of storytelling at its finest. Like, I don't know how, it's like you said, how do they make you feel all of these things given the context of this movie? It's the power of cinema and all the elements within that do that.
I think I agree with the naysayers to some degree. Like, I don't think we should make movies about the past. I think everything should be fiction and like, let's think forward. But
Agreed.
But I've said this a few. Okay, if the whole point of something, all good, everything has to end. Everything at some point has to come to an end. Our lives, the whole species, the planet, the universe, whatever. Like everything comes to an end. So all good things must end, right? So that means like for movies to matter to some degree, like they like have to end like at some point, and there needs to be a finale. And in my brain, it's always like, wouldn't you want to do that on your own terms? Whatever, it doesn't matter. And I've thought moments throughout history where it's like that could have been the end of cinema, or like that's the end of this type of story. And it's like we really don't need to keep making them. And obviously that's not feasible, especially with how everything in the world actually runs, right? But I think in a perfect world, and like I'm happy it isn't this way, this should be the last Sassy movie, and it like should be the last gangster movie. And in some way it's like this should probably be the last movie about the past. It's like, I don't know if we're ever going to be able to capture what a life is and how memory affects it and how a whole world can change and you be out of step with it. Like, that's truly, in a way, what it's about, at least in the back half. Like, it's capturing how your perspective changes, where you're a nobody, then you're a part of something, and then you're a nobody again. It's a circle of life type thing. He goes in a circle. So it's like just like in a weird. I do think this is one of the 10 best movies of all time. I'm just gonna say it now. I'm already there. Fuck it. So like in my head, this should end a whole type of movie, and I'd be okay if we never did it again. And everything should focus on the present and the future.
In a way, meta. Fucking Scorsese operating in the way that he's talking about people of the past who are beyond his day, like they were operating when he was just starting. They were actually coming to the end when he was just starting, because Hoffa dies in the 70s.
Oh, sure.
So we talked about at the time that this is them. This is Scorsese. This is De Niro. This is Pesci. This is Pacino. This is all four of them reckoning with the fact that they are no longer the guys.
Yeah.
You know, even though they still in a way are, like to us they are, like, you know, fucking to some people they are, but especially considering down the line. And I mean, obviously Jimmy Hoffa is a different, you know, public figure than like, say, Robert De Niro.
They talk about it in the movie.
Yeah.
I bet you don't even know who Hoffa is.
Yeah. But it's like he was as big as the Beatles when, or as Elvis when he was big, you know?
Yeah.
So, but it's like, will people still be talking about Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci and Al Pacino in the same way that they do now, 40 years from now?
Hopefully, but
Hopefully,
probably not.
but probably not.
I mean, Sassy, I do believe. Maybe not Pesci and De Niro as much, except for in conjecture with Scorsese. But
I think when you think about history, yeah, but that's it.
I think about, you know, even just like the importance of cinema and, you know, what a filmmaker, what an auteur is. I feel like if you don't teach Martin Scorsese to some people, you're eventually going to reach the point where somebody starts doing it. And then we're like, wait a minute. Hey, Martin already did this. We just forgot to tell you guys about it. Fuck.
Right.
This is a repeat director that now doesn't have a career because we didn't teach him.
But in a way, that's how the cycle of art is supposed to go, in some semblance of that.
Yes, but it's supposed to be
past without knowing it.
Right. But at least the whole idea is that there's evolution, that things are adapted, things are better, things become like you're still like, you know, like we said, most things can be boiled down to a story of Jesus or just like the stereotypical hero's tale and shit like that.
7 stories.
But it's always been something that's tried to be approved and adapted on. And that's why every time it doesn't, we're just like, well, this is just Jesus.
Right. And I guess what I'm saying is I feel like this is like the final flag of an old way of filmmaking. And it feels like the final statement of a whole generation of people, of a whole methodology of filmmaking, of a whole way of looking at film and history. It literally feels like the last statement. And it's a bummer that it won't be. But also, like, obviously, I'm glad Martin Scorsese is alive in my time and I still making movies.
I trust that whatever he makes next,
of course,
gotta be something.
Of course, like I'm not actually mad, but like in a perfect world, it's like, yeah, this stops here, and now we only have young people making movies. Like everybody over 40 is done now, or something. No, that's too young. Like 60, 50. It's like you guys are done. You don't get to say anything. Marty did it for you. Sorry, you're done.
I kind of do like the idea that this is sort of the end of the organized crime driven movies.
What else could you do?
You know, use.
What else could you do?
It just, you know, it is something that feels, especially after fucking watching 25 Martin Scorsese movies, it feels like something that is so played out, even when it's done perfectly, to the point where it's not the gangster mob stuff that I end up loving, that I attach myself to. I think that I truly am over like when I want, like now my crime movies, what I look for is disorganization. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I look for the chaos, because you know real crimes happen every day, and I tell you what, they're not all mob hits.
Correct.
You know,
they rarely are anymore.
Yeah, shit gets sloppy and shit gets crazy, and I feel like I definitely veer more towards that. Maybe it's just because it's a more chaotic experience, but hey, crime's chaotic.
Yes.
But
foreshadowing.
You know, so this being like the stamp that's like, all right, I did mobster gangster movies like no one else ever will. This should be the end. I I'd be able to live with that because I want to think about the directors and the writers who now have to challenge themselves.
Yes.
Of course, I know that there's got to be people listening to this calling us stupid because the whole point of movies, the whole point of art is to tell a story, and not every mobster story has been told, not every gangster story has been told. And who knows, there's probably some gems in there where you're like, oh shit, like the next time we see a mobster movie and we're like, well, I'm fucking glad that I know this now. We might bite ourselves in the butt for wishing that they stopped. Then again,
I mean, I've said that movies should have stopped at 2001, and I'm erasing 50 years of movies that I absolutely adore.
Just about to get to that.
Yeah, go.
No. Like I was brought to bring up the point that that's what you say about 2001.
But at the same time, I still agree with myself. Like, I still do think it should end. It's like, if we're never going to call it, if we were ever going to call it on our own terms, that was the moment of like somebody achieving the full potential of a medium before anybody knew what they were doing.
Well, maybe if they all knew it was a good movie then.
Right. And that's the problem. It was too much too soon and nobody was ready for it, which is how most innovations happen.
I think in a way, The Irishman's similar. It was fucking given an extreme amount of praise. Like, critics loved it, and people who saw
audiences still like saw it.
Yeah, people still like it. People still think it's great, but I don't think that there's a lot of people that are putting The Irishman in the conversation for one of the greatest movies ever made. Not just outside of Scorsese's filmography, too.
It doesn't have reverence.
No.
Not yet.
It's too new.
Which, like, yeah, the last time there was a true, like, instant like that is literally There Will Be Blood. And that's because it came at, like, the right time. Where I'm talking, like, a movie where, like, everybody was like, right, this is one of the greats, right? Like, we're just going to say it.
But see, it's funny because that movie was basically flexing that it was trying to be.
Exactly, which is why it worked. And it came right at a time before, like, the internet discourse of breaking everything down and podcasts and everybody can have a blog and be a film critic. Like, before film became the Wild West again, like, it was the last moment of like, we still listen to critics and opinions matter, and there's like a canon of movies, like, and nobody can have like their own independent corner of like, these are my people and this is what we think. So it makes, and he's going for that. So of course, but yeah, no, like even at the time, like, yes, No Country won and it was like a big deal and people loved it. There's like this census around critics where they immediately were like, this is a movie we're going to be talking about forever. Like, There Will Be Blood, I mean, where it was just like immediately adopted and one of the few modern movies to just like top like every list when you look at like best movies of the decade.
I mean,
like,
it is literally phenomenal.
He called the shot and he made it. He just went, watch me make a 3, and then he goes half court just to fuck with you.
This is like,
but like this should have happened with The Irishman. We think.
Still,
and it could down the line, and
but
I think people like us are going to make sure that fucking happens.
Well, to that point, it's like Frank and I talked a bit when this came out, like kind of talking just the idea that there are auteurs like Scorsese who have been and gone, especially now, because generally a lot of the time, most of these films are the last movie the director ever makes, but like that kind of movie that's almost the culmination of everything an artist has ever done, and then this sort of contemplative reflection on the value and the merit of all those things. And
like, why am I an artist?
Somehow also executing it to the like fullest of their ability. And I think it's interesting that De Niro is not only in this, but he's in Once Upon a Time in America, yet another gangster movie made by a filmmaker at the end, towards the end of their life.
That's all about memory.
Sweeping epic, even longer than this. And it's
not as effective.
All a memory piece, not nearly as effective, but it's interesting seeing De Niro not just in that world as far as Scorsese is concerned, like all the movies from when he was young up to now, but having that context too, knowing that he's in a way done this before,
right? And
that movie is lauded like by most film critics and whatnot to be one of the best movies ever made in its own right too. So it's interesting that he treads back on this world again, but there's a beauty to it, like when you know something about the filmmaker. And I do think it's interesting that you didn't have much context about Scorsese going into it the first time and still had that visceral reaction to it. But I think that just speaks to the power of movies again and how Scorsese can tap into that and how good he is now and how just it's a part of him. The filmmaking aspect of it is just a part of him. Like, it doesn't feel like there's work going on. Like we said it while we were watching it, it just feels effortless. Feels like he's barely doing work to make this happen. Like, he just knows what he's doing now. It's all instinctual. Like, everything that happens in this movie, like Frank has said while we watched it, just like the perfect example of Scorsese setting dominoes up and then just knocking them all down.
Every single one.
All three viewings. I had the same thought at the exact same moment. All three viewings where I'm sitting. The first one obviously is a tweaked version of this, but where I was like, why do I love this movie so much? It's great. Everything's perfect. He's nailing it. Master. I'm sucked in. But like, why am I so obsessed with this? And the first watch, it was like, am I getting a little bored? That was it in the theater. And literally the next scene, all three times, is the ceremony. And then from there on, it's him pushing it over. It's like, right. You knew exactly. Like, you got me. You motherfucker. It is just him sitting there going, you're not ready. Watch me fuck you.
It's a big chess game.
Yes, sir, daddy.
Feels like an opera.
But we've been focusing on Sassy a lot. And in perfect conjunction with him in this conversation needs to be our gal, Miss Thelma.
Thelma Schoonmaker.
She deserves as much credit as him.
God, it's the most brilliantly edited movie.
Yeah. Not a bad cut, not a false moment. Nothing lingers too long. Nothing is too short.
Everything they go to. It's just like fucking every shot, every cut is just like exactly the moment that it should happen.
It's the two of them. I'm sure they
It
barely
feels like
talked.
it knows when I'm going to blink. Like, oh, you're going to miss cut. So that way you blink right at the cut.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think they probably sat in that editing room just laughing and chatting it up, and she's just casually doing it. That's what it literally feels like. We don't have to think about it anymore.
She said
We
this is one of the
just-
best movies she's ever been a part of.
Yeah. She's how could it not be? And obviously,
De Niro
Prieto-
said it was different. He's like, it's different. I can't say it's the best. It's different.
Prieto brought his A game for Mr. Sassy
Tough.
because I think I keep saying like it's not my favorite, whatever, but it's because it's so subtle and needs to just be what it is. Everything.
That's
in
what
this
I think
movie-
is so brilliant about it.
Exactly. It's because everything is workmanlike. Because that's the point of the movie. It's just about it's.
Yeah,
It's
but there's
most
flashy stuff too. It's just like I think about half of the setups for like all the shots that they're doing and like the nuance of the focus pulling and you know where things are in the frame and like the fact that they're shooting with two cameras that are fucking three lenses on top of each one. Like it's just nuts. It's nuts. I'm like, how do you do that? Thinking it from the perspective of a filmmaker who's tried to attempt to make a movie on the smallest possible scale you could ever imagine. And that scale is bigger than I thought I'd ever work when I was a kid, you know? Thinking about working on this scale seems just impossible. And they make it look like a fucking cakewalk.
takes 25 movies to get there.
Yeah, but I mean, even considering Prieto, like Prieto's not
He's been around for a long time.
been around for a
But
long
with
time, but
Sassy?
think about, yeah, with
no,
Sassy?
With Sassy, no, but I mean, he's a skilled cinematographer.
Yeah, but even considering his amount of time in the business versus Scorsese, he wasn't starting in 1967.
No.
And if you think about the total synergy that it would take between everybody on the crew in order to make a movie like this work the way that it does, like Pareto had to be tapped into like Sessy's soul energy for him to only do that on what? This is his third?
Yeah.
This is his third
For
set.
him to only
Silence this.
for him to only do first of all to start off with Wolf of Wall Street and be like, all right, I guess this is what we're doing. Let's go crazy, and then immediately followed by silence, and it's like, hey, Marty, what do we?
I think Scorsese's found his
what's going on?
soulmate.
Irishman's the mix
his
of the two.
third soulmate.
Yes.
Yes.
He's had his Chapman, his Bauhaus, and his...
Well, no, I think he means Thelma Bobby Rodrigo, right?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. But he's not shooting Flower Moon, is he?
I thought filming started in 2021.
Is he not? He has to be.
Oh, he is. He is.
Okay.
He is. So yeah, it's his boy now. A fish. If he's shooting Killer of the Flower Moon.
I mean, at this point, Scorsese's probably like, I got my team.
Irishman's
You want me
the
to talk to
perfect-
somebody new?
It's the baby of Wolf and Silence. It like literally takes the styles of those two movies and just, and then now you have the Irishman, the
Mhm.
contemplative but still like zippy.
Because there are scenes in this movie that remind me of The Wolf of Wall Street
Absolutely.
in a way.
It's
And
because it's
more
got
specifically,
that
I think it's
tone.
like shots too. Like we haven't talked about him enough in this scene that we're about to bring up, but Pacino and the "you motherfuckers" scene.
Yeah, I was gonna definitely bring it back
dumb
around to the
mother-
because
the cast.
Fuckers.
that scene feels like it could have been in The Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah,
You know?
we're howling.
Yeah.
To me, Hoffa feels like when Hoffa comes in, it feels like we were walking in on the middle of Jordan Belfort, the end of Jordan Belfort's life,
No, like the middle.
like the middle.
Because when we first come in, it's the peak. We're at peak Hoffa when we first come in.
Solidarity,
He's the king of the world.
solidarity.
When we first meet Hoffa, it's like we're seeing him the way that Henry Hill sees Jimmy Conway.
Yeah.
Like it's like this towering, bigger than life guy who's going to give you everything you could ever want in the world.
And also he's nice and charming and my friend.
Yeah.
My
and
friend.
and my daughter likes him.
But Al Pacino, like he
She
feels
doesn't even
like
like me.
he's so good. Jimmy Hoffa feels like my friend. I'm just like, how is he transcends any like caricature, and he doesn't feel like he's playing Jimmy Hoffa. It just feels like there's a guy in front of me who just happens to be a Jimmy Hoffa, I guess, who I like want to be best friends with. And because he's magnetic. Every moment on that screen, he is sucking you into whatever the fuck he's talking about.
And then sometimes you think, like, how the hell am I so sucked in when he's being such a fucking incomparable asshole?
Because he's not that much of an asshole for a while.
He's a child.
They make sure you love him first before they start showing
They
the
make
shades.
sure you love him, and they make sure you understand why he's being a literal baby.
Right.
Because you see him when
he's treated
when
like
he's
the king of the world.
You see him when he's got his power. You know what he has, and the only thing that he's trying to do in the latter half of the movie is get that back.
Right.
And it's like nobody else within the context of the movie seriously understands that.
What a sad
because
movie.
nobody really thought of Hoffa as who Hoffa knew himself as.
Hoffa was just rushing the process, man. He was probably so scared of dying. Because, like, I think about that, too. Like, the first time, we haven't talked about this moment at all on the podcast yet, but when he first stays the night with Hoffa in the hotel in Chicago, he being Sheeran, and they have a little brief conversation before eventually they both go to bed. And as Hoffa goes to bed, like, he goes into his room, and he pulls the door shut just so. Like it's almost as if he's done it. It's brilliant acting. It's almost as if he's done it so many fucking times. You know exactly the amount of room that he needs for himself to feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it's just like so nuanced. Just like he pulls the door just so to where it's just open a little bit, just enough. Feels so calculated. Feels like he knows exactly what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And De Niro watches him, and I remember in the theater the first time seeing it, being like, "What is this? This means something. I don't know what." But it's something.
Because they hold on it. They hold on him looking. I really do think it's all three of the leads' best performances. De Niro, Pacino, and Pesci. Like, De Niro and Pesci are obviously operating in a more subtle tone than Pacino is, but that's what the character calls for. It feels like the role that Pacino was born to play. Like, it's going to have the loud bravado, but you're also going to get to be, like, the most human you've probably ever been. Like, all the chill scenes, like all the scenes with Peggy. Or when they are in the hotel room and he makes Frank tell him the thing. Even though he's rambling and bitching about all his problems and being a baby and not listening, he's then notices something on Frank, and he has that genuine moment of friendship. Like, what are you not saying? He's like, I don't want to talk about it right now. He's like, what? And he's like, I'm getting an award, and I was hoping you'd give it to me. Like, it's the most
It's so
human
sweet
and nice thing when he reacts, because you can tell he's genuinely happy for his friend.
Yeah.
And it's tapping into everything that Pacino's literally great at, especially in this old man phase of his life. And coming into this movie, he's a whirlwind, and he like wakes you up. It's not that the movie's putting you to sleep, but it's like Frank is not an energetic protagonist.
Without Pacino, you would not be able to have a 3.5 hour movie.
Correct.
Here,
He brings the life for the third of the movie he's in. Or
he's not in a lot when you really
half,
consider it.
Maybe half.
Yeah. He's a very dominant part of the movie when he's active in
Because
it.
he's the driving force of everyone's world. But then what happens once he's dead? He's Jesus.
Stops.
He's Jesus. Frank's the Judas.
But Pacino specifically in the part, I guess, is like, it's interesting you say it's his best performance of all time.
I think it is. The thing that sold me is the scene you started bringing up, the funny scene. Like, because that felt like it was almost out of nowhere, but I was also cackling, and it's still somehow human. When he's shouting at everybody in the room, calling them cocksuckers, that Kennedy, his fucking father!
Well,
and then he pauses and commits, and it's just hilarious, but then that quick on a dime. I'm going to jail.
I'm going to jail.
You understand? I'm going to prison.
And it's the way
because of you fuckers.
But it's the way his hands and his whole body changes. Even though he still has that same shouting energy, he physically switches on a dime from like, I'm the boss of this room to like, holy shit, the reality of my situation. I was like, I'm sold. Like, what? That's some fucking acting right there. And then he goes out and he comforts Frank and pulls him back in that room. I don't know, man. There's just so much good acting happening.
The scene
so
with
fast.
him and Tony Pro in the prison too.
Amazing.
it is what it is. And he's eating ice cream the whole time and just like,
I got mine.
I still have my pension.
and motherfucker, like, I mean, he talks about Kennedy the whole fucking movie, like how much of a cocksucker he is. But the scene where Kennedy gets killed and you find out on the news, like, I thought it was interesting that all of us seemed to have kind of a different, like, look at it this time. That at least certainly I did. Where I was like, I always thought he was happy in that moment, and that's why he goes to sit back down and eat the ice cream.
Well, it's because the next scene we discussed.
What was the next scene?
That's when the people trying to interview him, and he's literally like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to his funeral.
Yeah, which I mean, like, that makes sense. But I think it's the moment, like, and especially once Russell brings it up again when he gives Frank the ring, where he's like, and I mean, I think this is only a thing in the context of the movie. When you go into the fucking logistics of conspiracy theory, bullshit, whatever, if they could kill a president, they can kill a union leader, you know?
They can whack a president. They can whack a president of a union.
Yeah. With that said, I have to assume that in that moment, given the fact that Pacino closes his door the way he does every night, death is such a prominent thing in his head that could come at any moment, despite his machismo, despite his confidence, despite his bravado. He is still deathly afraid of dying.
You originally started this thought a long time ago, thinking he was on, like, not exactly a suicide mission.
Yeah, that he was pushing it.
Well, but that, like, you know, that's not something that was prominent in that scene, particularly where he's at the ice cream parlor. Like, that he's probably just eating his fucking ice cream and he's like, good, motherfucker, I don't care. He's the only one in the room that doesn't care about Kennedy dying. Because
Beyond,
everybody
like,
and their mother that I've ever met is always like, fucking, I remember where I was when Kennedy got shot. Like, didn't matter if you voted for him or not. The president getting assassinated was the craziest fucking thing that could have ever happened at that moment in 1963. So when he sits down, I'm like, this is a weird way to react to that. I have to assume that that's some sort of like, fuck him kind of mentality.
Yeah.
But this time I only read it as, oh, fuck, I'm going to die. Like, if they can kill him, they're going to kill me. It's going to happen. But maybe that's the moment that he accepts it, and that's why ultimately, like I said, he rushes the process of dying, or literally he forces his hand, basically, to
or
make
it's
it happen.
just classic pure hubris.
It feels like
That too.
Pacino doesn't think that there's ever like a way that they would kill him. You know, he thinks that they fear jail or, you know, the repercussions more than, you know, they fear.
They want him dead.
Yeah, which is just like,
or he just
not
thinks
the
he's literally
case.
invincible.
Because I don't know if he didn't understand this or what, but both of those things are kind of like one and the same, Mr. Hoffa, and that, you know, killing you could potentially open the doors to ruin everything they've created, but clearly keeping you alive is also in some way or another going to ruin everything they created. Because that's the thing. Yes, there's a lot of hits, there's a lot of killings in the mob, and, you know, but something that I've noticed throughout all these movies is like there's only like a couple where I'm like, oh, that's a like a feeling kill, you know, as opposed to just like, it seems like almost, except for maybe 2 kills in this movie, everything is like, nope, you're dying because of this. Like we have to kill you in order to do this, or we can't move forward. You are an obstacle for us, and that's why we're killing you. It's not like, even, you know, I say 2 because the reason, you know, I even questioned it in the movie when they kill what's the new boss? They kill on his birthday.
No, was it Sebastian Maniscalco?
Crazy Joe.
Joe Gallo.
When they kill Crazy Joe, and, you know, it's after he has that run-in with Buffalino, and he's like, what?
Disrespects him.
We're both bosses. What do you mean?
We're brothers. We can joke. We're brothers.
Why can't we joke? It's fine. Just, you know, you should go. And that's right after that he gets hit. He gets killed. And I was like, is that just because he pissed off Buffalino?
Yes.
And you both were like, yes, but also he killed this other guy that's been important to their moving, so now he's an obstacle.
It's what's also just been the thing that it was the straw that broke the camel's back for Buffalino.
Yes.
Like, they were already thinking about killing him, and it's the same thing with Hoffa. It's like that's something that's been discussed like by a lot of people over the course of Hoffa's entire
him lots
time.
of warning because they like
Lots
him.
of time.
More than
Even
probably anybody else.
I even think about the fact that Tony Pro was literally about to theoretically, and I guess I don't know because it didn't happen in the movie, but it's like he was theoretically about to accept endorsing Hoffa. Hoffa could have had his position back in theory if he would have just said, I'm sorry for literally being a racist to you.
And you know what I will say, though? During that scene where he says, you people, I didn't even think, like, what race is Tony Pro?
Italian.
and Hoffa's not.
I know.
Which is so funny. Pacino playing a non-Italian and fucking De Niro playing an Irish. Again, the final time they've done this, but fucking Scorsese loves putting De Niro in the Irishman part.
Literally loves it.
I'm just saying that
Thinks it's funny.
the crux of this movie is that there's interwhite racism. I just love that. I love that two white people were just like, "Hey man, you're fucking racist," and he was like, "No, I'm not."
In so
Fuck
many
you."
words.
It's like, wait a minute. You both should be okay right now. Then again, there was the whole thing about hating Italians that they had to deal with.
That's a whole thing.
Prejudice against that.
I understand why Tony Pro is so upset, but when I think about it, and also if I told anybody in my family about it, they'd be like, "Aren't they both white?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, that's the best part, actually." Because it's about respect.
But now
it has nothing to do with race. It's about respect.
I mean, Stephen Green is awesome.
Oh, he is amazing in
Tony
this
Pro.
movie.
Yeah.
This is his comeback from Gangs of New York.
All the performances
forgot
are
he was in
literally
that.
he's in Gangs of New York.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Stephen. I remember we were like, Tony Pro, there he is.
Yeah.
And Whispers is definitely in something else Scorsese's done too. He brings back a lot of the people that he's worked with, like even in like small
Whispers
parts.
is in Goodfellas, Casino, and Heat.
Oh, that's
What?
fucking hilarious.
So he's just
He's the guy. Whispers is the guy.
Who the
Whenever I
fuck
think
is
about
he
a
in
random
Heat?
person in Heat, it's definitely the guy from Anaconda.
John Voight. God, he's such a
The
big
worst.
role.
He's not the
Anyway.
Whispers that died in that car accident. That fucking cut in that scene, it's so good.
I mean, you started to say it, and I'm just gonna reiterate. Every single person in this movie is perfectly cast, like down to like the random one-liners.
Well, hey, we gave Pacino and De Niro their time. Let's give Pesci a little more.
okay,
Because I think there's a bit more to tell. Because he's doing work here that he's literally never done before.
because he's subtle, but he keeps his psychopathic eyes and energy.
But I think that's why people see that so much more predominantly in Pesci's performance, because he's really only done bombastic, like outside of the realm of Russell Buffalino. Like there's got to be more subdued Pesci. I mean, Raging Bull is a pretty subdued one, other than like the few scenes he's given, and he has a
Submissive?
he has like 2 scenes in Once Upon a Time in America.
Actually, that's the closest to the Buffalino.
Yeah.
Where it's like the calm psychopath.
Yeah, and he's also another one who's like a piece of the puzzle, like a piece of the machine where things go wrong in that movie, I'm pretty sure.
Well, he's the one that comes in and is like, "I'm gonna fuck you up."
Yeah.
Because he's like another mob boss or something. I don't really remember.
Yeah, it's a long movie, a lot of information to process, especially on one viewing. And that movie's almost more miserable than this.
I disagree.
More miserable in a way that I
Opium.
feel like I at least feel like nice to some degree in parts of this. I feel like none of that movie is nice.
I don't think any of this movie's very nice.
James Woods. That's what this movie needed. James Woods.
Well, that's what Once Upon a Time
No.
in America had.
This movie needed more Harvey Keitel.
It did.
actually. It's a bummer that he's in like 2 scenes. And
I
has,
know.
Like one
His first
set
time
of
back
lines.
since Last Temptation of Christ.
Yeah.
Wild.
Judas.
Been a while. I think is he literally in 3 scenes when you first see him in the restaurant, the
When they talk to him,
the laundry scene.
and then the award.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are the 3 scenes he's in.
What a waste.
What a waste.
I don't know,
And you
man.
talked about the fact that Ray Liotta could have, in theory, come back. But I kind of think that...
when I look at this movie, I feel bad for Ray Liotta because there is not a single character like outside of our big 3, our
Well, then
main
what about
3.
Sharon
It's
Stone?
perfectly cast. It's perfectly Sharon Stone. How many has she been in?
she was in Casino. How many has Ray Liotta been
only
in?
been in good.
Ray Liotta's only been in Goodfellas, but that's super iconic. Like super iconic.
Right, but then I think about the fact that it's like Scorsese probably made the right move, because if you put Liotta in it, then
Pacino!
everybody is like... But Pacino's never worked with Scorsese before.
Exactly. So if we're talking about how many they've done,
But I'm talking about the fact that you bring in Ray Liotta, that's just another thing for people to be like, hey, like as soon as he comes up on screen. It's like, that's probably why he keeps Harvey Keitel in the back. It's like De Niro and Pacino and Pesci are the truly, truly important things in this movie. It revolves around the 3 of them.
Yes.
Like they are the machines that like power the narrative, despite
Yes.
the fact that it is still Frank's perspective the whole time.
Yes.
They're the 3 parts of the machine that make it move.
Well, because he's nothing but a piece of their lives.
Yes.
to
He
me,
doesn't have his own life.
that sort of makes even more my point. If those 3 are the main 3 important characters, then it's like you swap out this one guy for Ray Liotta.
Who though?
Bobby Cannavale is who he said.
the meats guy.
He's too old. Bobby Cannavale. He's
He's literally so unimportant in terms of just like
too old.
No, that doesn't matter. It literally shouldn't, because if that's the case, the main three characters are too old.
I also think it changes. Leota's performance wouldn't be the same as how Cannavale did it. They're different.
Okay,
Kinda.
The person I think he actually could replace, I wouldn't want him to, but Ray Romano. He could. Leota could play the
Dude, but you
lawyer.
need that comedic edge that Ray Romano brings to that part.
There's something about Ray Romano's just voice where it's just.
All right,
just wanna know if he
Mr.
did
Frank Sheeran.
I just want to know if he did it.
Yeah.
That scene, his first scene is amazing.
But did you? You want to know if I did it? It's De Niro sells it when he's smiling.
Yeah,
he's happy.
and all the expressions on Ray Romano's face as he's trying to get him to come on,
just fucking tell me.
Basically,
Even if you did do it, all they would ask is for you,
names,
give
accomplices. You wouldn't give any names, would you? No.
Would you give names?
No names.
No.
Come on.
You want to know
if I did it or not?
No, man. The more I think about it, especially after watching Killing Me Softly, where I can see an older Ray Liotta, but also reserved. So now I get Place Me on the Pine saying an older Liotta, but terrifying. It's like you meet right there in the middle. Because all that, Bobby Cannavale is he's the first sort of stepping stone to get De Niro into the world of Buffalino and Hoffa. So you make someone like Ray Liotta like that, you avoid the whole like, oh shit, Goodfellas, the crew's back together again. Or maybe you make that a selling point of this movie and you find out that Ray Liotta's only in these couple scenes. I think that would just be like a good, that'd be like a
Harvey Keitel being in it was a selling point, kind of
like bonus content, because this movie is perfect as is, and that would also just make me like it more. That doesn't necessarily take away anything from the movie. Like I don't like it less because Ray Liotta's in it. I'm not like damn it, I wish Ray Liotta. But since we always talk about who could replace who on this podcast, the first thing I think about is like Ray Liotta, and I also just feel bad because I know that he feels bad about not being in The Irishman. He's like, why did they call me? And I'm like, why did they call him? Come on.
Because he's not exactly
maybe he was
right
hard
for
to work
any
with.
part, though.
I don't know.
Like Bobby Cannavale is a stretch. Like you're stretching.
But like he could do it.
Yes, he literally could, but it's like he's not right for it, and that's the difference. It's called casting.
No,
You got to do what's right.
but you got to do what feels good to me.
Do you think that this movie would have benefited?
No, you just would have liked it more.
That is what I just said.
I know, but that's not the same thing.
It is not the same thing.
Well, because I do want to
and I'm
bring
not
up...
saying like, fucking toss me in a ball and throw me in the world where Ray Liotta is Bobby Cannavale, but like Cannavale. Maybe, tuck me in bed, lay my head to rest, give me some melatonin gummies, slide in the Irishman DVD, and as I'm fading away, I get to go, is that Ray Liotta? That's what I want.
Okay.
Just give me the dream.
But let's talk Pesci.
Let's talk Pesci. Wet Bandits is my first taste. Home Alone was my first taste of Pesci.
Probably same.
And
Definitely was mine.
I only knew about, the idea of Joe Pesci just from like the Society.
Great.
So I finally get my first taste in Raging Bull, and I'm a little confused because I'm like, what's this crazy guy? He's got one scene where he goes off the rails, and I'm like, all right, well, I think that this guy is gonna be someone who's very good at being supporting and is sort of just like in the background, but important enough when you need him. And then I saw Goodfellas. And I was like, oh, shit, this is just what you do? Or is this just a one-time thing? Knowing that this is just what you do, but letting myself think, it's just a one-time thing. How is this going to go? Then we get Casino, and it's sort of the same thing. But I'm starting to see that reservedness, mostly because I was sort of picking up on how much of a bitch Ace Rothstein was and how every time he got into any sort of a confrontation with Joe Pesci, that's like the one time Joe Pesci didn't have to blow up. Where he would just be like, don't you fucking just, And Ace would listen. Ace would listen and be like, I don't want to get my ass kicked right now. So I guess this is that. So, the whole time I'm like, all right, well, like what is Joe Pesci then? If he can be a guy who's meek and in the background, but also this terrifying figure in both ways, like what is the amalgamation? What is peak? And I feel like that is The Irishman.
Yes.
Like, when you talk about best performances of all time, I'm definitely gonna agree with you with Joe Pesci and on Robert De Niro. I don't know about Al Pacino. I think he's got a lot up his arsenal. I'm gonna agree with you on the De Niro and the Pesci.
Actors.
I think De Niro has even more up his arsenal than Pacino does, in the sense that, like, I buy Pacino being his best performance in the sense that it does define what Pacino does. Like, I think that the interesting thing about De Niro is that, like, it's something De Niro's never done before, yet simultaneously integrated with everything he's ever done. And Pacino, and the thing that's impressive about Pesci is that it is something Pesci's never done before. Confusing all their names.
Yes.
But
I mean, like, I think Pacino has multiple times given what I would be like, that's one of the best performances I've ever seen. Same with De Niro. Not so much Pesci. I think this is the one Pesci where I'm like, one of the best. Not that he hasn't been literally amazing before, but if I'm trying to write a list of like 20, I gotta really think about De Niro and Pacino a lot, and I probably include Pesci. I think he's my third favorite of the three, personally.
Of like the performances,
Like over all of Sassy.
No,
this movie.
Pacino only has one.
This movie. I think De Niro here in The Irishman is probably my favorite in any Sassy movie. Favorite performance.
The more we talk about it and the more we think about it, the more that it literally is drilling into my brain how phenomenal his performance is in this. Because how do you do nothing and make it look like everything?
Yep.
How do you play like 20 years old all the way up through like 90 fucking like however old De Niro was, 70 something?
You kind of do. That's the one thing that I say about this movie is that, like, fuck the de-aging, fuck the whatever you're trying to doing. Like, if you want me to think this is a 25-year-old man, then you better animate his body too, because they do not move like it, buddy.
But dude, I don't care. I buy it.
I know, but I don't buy it, but it's fine.
Well, then you don't buy it. If it's fine, then you buy it. If you don't buy it, then it's not fine.
Well, then how come it's fine and I don't buy it?
Where did we just talk about this the other day?
It's that it works. It's that it captures
Andrew Garfield's
the essence.
performance.
Yeah.
In silence. It's the same thing. It works, but it absolutely doesn't.
But the difference is that
both.
I still think that it's a bad performance. I think the difference is here is that you literally have the physical obstacle of he is too old to be playing that part.
Yes, he's the same age as Sassy.
But the difference is that he's performing well. He's making you believe that he's this naive person who doesn't have all this lifetime of experience and information. He makes you think that he's meek and like small and kind of pathetic until he gets into the hands of fucking Pesci.
I think that
that's when he becomes the sort of confident or at least stoic character that Frank Sheeran ultimately lays out the rest of the movie until you get to the end. And he has this few scenes where I think he does exhibit emotion. Like, I mean, obviously we talked about Thelma being an incredible editor in just all regards, but in this movie particularly, and then the phone call scene with De Niro being 3 or 2 or 1 jump cuts that make it like that much more potent and powerful. But De Niro is exhibiting a level of emotion that his character hasn't exhibited the entire movie and probably doesn't the rest of it.
One of the most powerful minute of acting ever.
Yeah.
We talked about it multiple times. It's the Tom Hanks and Captain Phillips. It's like what the fuck? Where did that come from? And now I wasn't
prepared for this.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, what's the last thing you're thinking this character's going to do? You just built this up, this whole movie, how this guy is, and the moment you think you understand, it falls apart.
Yeah.
It's like the last thing you're expecting, him just stumbling over. He's literally not talking. He's just that whole scene. Yeah. It's going to be okay. Yeah, you just got to
be positive. Got to be positive.
It's the hardest thing to watch. Like, objectively. I don't think any person, even if you hate this movie, I'm sure every single person during that scene was like, whoa. Like, because it's too real. It's literally too real. Like, what? Yeah.
And hearing the distress on the other end.
And I can't I feel like there's other examples of that, but the first one I think.
And then that shot of the whole room, because it's just in on him the whole time, and then when it cuts away to the wide shot, seeing from behind Frank, it's the most fucking pathetic. It's just pathetic. It's fucking so good. It's all exemplified through the performances. But I think when we talk about who are the real granddaddies here, like, I mean, obviously it's the three, but De Niro is chief among them, doing the craziest shit he's literally ever done in his whole career. But we've been talking about that literally every episode leading up to this point. Like, we've known
the
this.
truth. Yeah, he's the best scene partner of all time because he's letting everybody else shine, but he's still shining brighter. We haven't talked at all about Steve Zalian's literally amazing script.
Yeah, like maybe the best screenplay Scorsese's ever worked with. Also,
for sure.
I mean, obviously there were changes that were made to it between Scorsese and like De Niro, and we know that Scorsese is one for improv, and they like to do things on the day. So
and he's also one to tweak scripts.
Yeah, well, hey, we just specifically mentioned the scene that's very important, but De Niro changed that one line of dialogue, correct?
Yeah, he changed it from when he's confessing to the priest, who does that to a friend is what's in the script. He changed it to who makes that call, which is just weird. It's weirdly the most powerful thing. I lost it.
Yeah.
I absolutely lost it.
Yeah, because that's the moment that sat with him.
I like that it's changed from who does that to a friend to who makes that call, because Frank Sheeran has killed plenty of people that probably thought they were his friend. That's not what matters to him. What matters to him
Joe Gallo
is that he had to talk.
I did it, and then who makes that call? Like, who made the decision that put me in that spot that I had to make that phone call? Right. It's sitting there and acknowledging for the first time, like, I did this.
It's the fact that he's never had to cover up, killing somebody. He's never had to think about it. He's killed them. They're dead. Everybody knows it. That's fine.
No, he's had to cover it up. It's just it's different when it's somebody that he cares about. He cares about Joe. They never had
to hide a person like Hoffa. People like Hoffa.
Well, no, but I'm sure he's had to, he's been interrogated probably before.
Sure.
Like, it's not something they bring up because it's probably just part of the deal. Like, it's like, you say like the scene where they cover it. You got to name names? No? Okay, good. And that's that, because we know that that's the principle that Sheeran lives by. He's going to just do whatever it's got to take to make sure that everything goes okay. Throws the guns in the river, or that cool CGI shot of all the guns at the bottom of the river. And that's that. But then you get to Joe, somebody who's literally held your child, and then you kill their husband, and you got to be like, yeah, maybe he's alive out there somewhere. I don't know. Like, I can't comprehend how the fuck you'd begin to do that. So
having yourself.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I see. That's what I'm saying.
But I
feel this movie.
You even see how Buffalino has to treat the situation when he knows that it's got to be Sheeran that has to take the hit, but he knows that he has to cater to it to make sure that Sheeran will do it, because he knows that it's probably going to be touchy, that there are scenarios in which Sheeran might pull back and go, no, God damn it, I'm not going to do it. He has to put him in a scenario to force his hand. Be like, well, this is literally what's got to happen. And I think it's interesting the way that Scorsese uses space in this movie, very specifically, but he's done it a lot throughout his whole career. There's the motif of the empty spaces and the flowers that I've been noticing all the way through all of his movies. There's something menacing always about empty spaces in a Scorsese movie. And I mean, that goes all the way back to North by Northwest and like other movies, like where just like the openness, the nothingness, the unknown, that there could be anything in this room. You're searching in the frame for something wrong. Like when fucking Pesci goes through the door in Goodfellas and you get that shot of just the room. Sure. And that alone is enough for you to go, this is it. Well, and same fucking thing happens here with Hoffa. He looks into the room and then has that the craziest, like that's another part of Pacino's performance is his expressions are so good. Like that moment when he looks into the room and De Niro's standing behind him is just like he knows what's going on. And I don't even know if he knows it's Frank. He probably doesn't even accept that. He just thinks like, oh God, they're gonna kill me and Frank's here too. And they might kill him. Like fuck, fuck.
I mean, like, I think those are very specific scenarios, because when you first said the empty spaces thing, I think about a lot of them, and all I think is the loneliness. I think that's more what I feel from Sesse's use of it. Like, obviously, there are specific times where it's danger, and but that's adherent to those scenarios of, yes, this person's clearly about to die. I think, I think the shot of like hallways and stuff in Taxi Driver, or even his cab alone, like you can go back to that, or New York. There's times when Jimmy Doyle is framed far on a bed and away from the camera, or there's times in Raging Bull too when he's alone in the dressing room, and
the cell,
and lots of Age of Innocence too. Like even when he walks away at the end of Newland Archer walks away. What moment am I forgetting?
Howard Hughes.
Oh,
Howard
the bathroom.
Hughes,
We talk about
way
the
in the
bathroom
future.
scenes a lot.
But just like it always feels this pervasive loneliness, which like, of course,
I mean, and maybe
that's set out.
I think it plays into both. I think it's interesting how he utilizes that motif throughout. But no matter what, I don't think there's any point in a Sassy movie where you see a space and you're like, that's nice.
other than silence.
no,
Just because
you
it
know,
looks nice.
what I was about to say was maybe it's because I was influenced by, what he did in Taxi Driver. But a lot of times when I'm looking at these empty spaces or these big open spaces, to me, it always feels like there's something that we're not looking at. Like it feels like there's something that we're not seeing on purpose. So when we enter that room and we get the shot of just the room in Goodfellas, you're deliberately not seeing the look on those guys' face. You're not looking at the look on Joe Pesci's face until you get the, oh no. And then even with the shot of Hoffa, it's from behind. There's something that you're deliberately not seeing when you're looking at this room.
The unknown.
And I that's how I've always, viewed these open spaces, which is like, what am I not looking at? What don't I want to see? And why are you showing me this?
That's why I specifically say
fear more.
empty spaces where I'm just like and I think that plays into the loneliness idea too, or just the idea that we're all alone, and that plays into the idea of dying. It's like no matter what, like people say that no matter how many people you have in your life, when you die alone. I think that is a theme that has run through Scorsese's whole filmography, because that's something he's clearly afraid of. If we're tracing the idea that they're putting their fears up through their art,
We all are.
yeah, I mean obviously I think that's the only reason why I can say that assuredly is
Even
that
the
everybody
people
in
who
some
say
sense
they aren't, they
because
are.
we don't know. You don't know. It's the same thing. It's in the movie. Fucking Pesci, we getting wheeled off, and he's like, "Where are you going?
You'll
going
see.
to church." And he's like, "What?" Laughs at him and is like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "You'll see."
Because what else is there?
And then he is groveling to this priest at the end of the movie.
Because what else?
Yeah,
You'll see.
gotta do something.
I get it. I totally get it. I'm definitely going to be that way when I'm old. Like, fuck, if there is a God, he's going to be so mad at me.
I don't know, man. Because to me, the reason why people, the solace people find in religion, I think that solace will only come when everything else has been lost.
Right.
And I mean, obviously, we're fortunate enough to like not have even begun to let a life like that. But obviously, there's always time. There's
Young as
always
fuck.
time.
My body's already falling apart.
Well,
Frank,
I think about the way
if you
the time
died
passes
right
in the
now,
movie.
guess what? It wouldn't be alone. And if you wouldn't die right now alone, I don't think a lot's going to change in like 3 or 4 years. Give it 20. Give it fucking 20, 25. Who knows what piece of shit you might become.
What I'm going to become.
God, I just want to hit you. I just want to punch you in your
If I
stupid
ever
little face.
succeed, it's over. I'm not stopping until I do. So it's fucking. Just
It's
Hoffa
not.
me now.
No.
Save the trouble.
Audience at home,
Just
if you
do it now. Don't do
dumb
it in 30 years
no,
to me.
stop. Shut
Do
up.
it now. Just fucking kill me.
So anyway, The
that's why
Irishman.
this movie resonates with me. I'm like, right.
finally we got down to it.
Just kill
You're
me.
Matt Damon.
I just fucking kill me.
Shut the fuck
And
up.
also, I'm so
And Brandon
scared.
DiCaprio.
I'm also so scared, and I can't remember if I've talked about this on mic or not, and I apologize if I have. My irrational fear is somebody's living in my apartment, and I don't know.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
it's not in my
you have
apartment.
not talked about this.
Okay, my irrational
To
fear.
us, you have.
My irrational fear is not even an apartment; it's a house. It's definitely more when I live.
Well, now
in a
you're
house.
telling people, so good job.
Yeah, whatever. I'm gonna make a movie about it for sure. So then it's like no surprise. Scares me. Scares the fuck. It's not that somebody's in my house. It's that they're living there, and I have no idea. It's not even a fear of something's gonna happen to me. It's literally just like you're there
It's me,
the whole time.
You would hate being the babysitter of the boy.
Yeah.
What your mother and I must
Sorry.
know
not to-
is.
yes, that Christmas is very scary, and I think that's mainly why.
See,
Hold on. My real fear is Irishman. That I'm going to be sitting alone in a nursing home, regretting everything I've ever done. It's me, and of course his name's Frank. So I'm literally watching my future fear in real time. So yeah, that's why this is one of my favorite movies.
That's called projecting too.
Yes. That's okay. Time out. Why does anybody like any movie they like? Because they can project themselves onto it to some degree.
I'm just telling you.
I'm aware.
Okay.
That's the movies.
I don't know if I didn't know.
That's the movies, man. That's how
didn't apply to
people
you.
have different
apply
fucking
to you.
opinions. Can I project my ideals, my wants, my fears, my anxieties, myself, whatever? It's just like, yeah, do I connect with this? Yes or no?
I think that's yeah.
I'm gonna say you
so
do.
this one hits harder than most because I'm literally watching my greatest
But
fear in like for 40 fucking minutes without
Real quick, you say that very personally, but we did just get through the statement of, well, yeah, everyone's afraid of dying.
I know.
Everybody's afraid of dying alone, regretting everything they've ever done. So,
Well, I don't know.
with that said,
Is it?
with that
Everybody's
said,
greatest fear?
I don't know if it's everyone's greatest fear, but I think it's something
I'm
that's...
talking like I think about it every single day of my life, and
Okay.
I'm like, oh my god, it's
Some
coming.
people definitely don't think about it every single day of their lives, but
like
you know.
usually when I'm in the shower, I'm just like, fuck, it's coming.
All right.
It's gonna be here quicker than you think.
So that's only more argument why this movie is one of the best movies ever made, because it's so universal in the way that it speaks to the human experience on that level, and in that sense of that we're all going to end up where Frank Sheeran ends up. Like in theory,
And
you
we're
know, 'cause
all
we
gonna-
all die no matter what, and it's like we might not be old in our nursing home where Frank Sheeran is, but it's or you're Jimmy Hoffa or you're somebody else. You know, it's like you're any of the people who get the goddamn title cards in this movie that we have yet to bring up too. Where like every time some random person is brought up, they'll freeze frame or throw a title card underneath their name
How they died.
with how they died and when. And usually it's pretty visceral, like shot 6 times in the head in their driveway, 1980. And it's like, that's also specifically with this movie playing into the fact that that's what this life leads to. Like literally every one of these people, doesn't matter how assured their position is within what they're working in, they all end up with a bullet in the head.
Yes.
I did
Except
like
the one guy, well liked by all.
I really
Died
like
of natural
that.
causes.
The one guy that's like well liked by all died 80 years old of natural causes. It's like,
Pretty
good
good.
for you.
Pretty
Good
good.
for you. I think both Pacino and Pesci can relate through Frank as well, though, or De Niro. That was weird that I did. Whatever. Through De Niro as well, because I think literally everyone can, if you look at it at just like the idea of like you're a person who lives and you grow and then you work and you'll have a boss and you'll have friends and family and whatever. Like if you take it literally at face value and not about like the specifics of working in the mob and stuff. Like everybody lives Frank's life. Sometimes you're the boss or become the boss, but you weren't always the boss. So at some point, everybody lives his life.
I mean, Frank Sheeran actually does get a pretty glamorous existence.
Sure
by
fucking
the point
does.
that, like that fucking. I've never had an event held like that for me.
Right.
And I'm sure I never will. Jesus Christ.
That's what I mean. Like at face, even every person who lives in a company lives in a company, works for a company, you'll get like your retirement.
Lives in a company.
Yeah, well, lives in a company. Most people, most of their lives are stuck in a job. They work their whole life.
Fucking
Even if it's movies, it's still the same thing. Sassy is no different than Frank. None of us are. It is the most universal movie. It's just so, but I get being put off by the specifics of like the mob and who these people are.
Well, that's
I
why
just don't feel it that
we
way.
connect to that because we like these movies. Like I think that it's
Yeah.
evident through having done Scorsese all the way through these 25 movies is that like the ones that hit the hardest are the ones that are pretty adjacent to the Irishman.
Listen.
The Goodfellas, the Casinos, the Mean Streets, the Departed, the fucking Wolf of Wall Street. Like all those movies like seem to have this sort of, we have this sort of glee and affinity for them in the
sure.
way that and I think it's because it speaks to why we love movies and why we love entertainment in that sense, like the entertaining part of movies rather, like just like they give that drive to us. And I think another thing is that at least me specifically, I attach like those movies to my closest relationships, the people that I've enjoyed those movies with, the people that I've experienced those movies with, the people that share in that love with me. I feel a bond, a connection. The Irishman brings us together in ways that I don't know other movies have brought me together with other people. That's huge.
We're making a podcast.
We're making a podcast
Correct. Because of this movie.
because of this movie,
Like,
because of
quite-
Martin Scorsese.
But specifically this one. I don't know, man.
We've been building to this point the whole time. We're sitting in the same room we were sitting in when we were recording Who's That Knocking at My Door.
We've already lived the life.
Pretty
I don't
much.
know.
We've watched. I think about that idea, the concept that Scorsese has built his own Bible, like his own set of like cautionary tales, basically.
That's what an artist is doing.
Right, exactly.
Always.
And
Well, you're right. I'm sorry. It is that I forget that it is more specific to like that type of storytelling.
And
he
also just like a good artist. There's plenty of people who just make movies.
I know, an artist. There are entertainers, and then there are artists, and there's nothing wrong with entertainers at all. We need them. I love them. They're the best.
but Scorsese
Movies
is
can be
a
fun.
miracle.
Yes, I know. I have a
Scorsese's
blast.
a miracle. 'cause
Dirty
he's
Dancing
both.
is a revelation.
He's both. The same guy
Yes,
that made
he's
fucking
both.
After Hours made Silence.
But he's an artist at heart.
Yeah.
But he knows
Like
how to
every one of his
entertain.
movies is an art film.
He's fucking
All of them.
jazz handing through it all.
Sometimes, you got to look a little bit harder to see his hands moving, but they're always doing it.
Yeah, even the fun ones. Like, After Hours is a literal, like,
It is an art movie.
it's so fucking weird. That's a
It's
weird
a-
one to kind of jump to.
It's a weird one, but it's totally a movie about lust and just about how like where it gets you, about caring about people, and where it gets you, about holding on to material values, and where it gets you and not being true to yourself, and where it gets you. But it's all fucking behind this fucking goofy ass dude just trying to get home
Brilliant.
after he tried to bone and the girl died.
God,
The
that's the
Irishman-
same guy who made The Irishman.
Okay, I know. But to get back to why The Irishman's special,
Yeah, go ahead.
specifically, operates in the very same way that It's a Wonderful Life does, kind of. Where when it ends, it just makes me want to call everyone I know and be like, I fucking love you. Like, I appreciate all of you. I
Makes
love
me
you
wanna
all so
run.
much.
Makes me want to run.
Because
Don't
I
look
just
at
see that and
me.
I'm like, well, don't be him. Don't be
Yeah.
Frank Sheeran.
Yeah.
Like, if anything, if you say it's your greatest fear personified, then just okay.
Okay, not him. That's what I'm saying. The what's happening.
The
to him.
existence.
You know,
I
But
understand.
that's inevitable.
yes.
My body
It's-
will shut down and I will be in a nursing home.
It's weird
Because
because
I will
when
not ask any of you to wipe my ass. No thanks. Give the professional.
But you can at least appreciate what you have while it's here.
Yes.
kind of.
That's the real lesson. Because his life flashes by. He has a family and like 4 fucking kids. And they barely they don't matter.
Yeah,
That's
'cause
the
they
point.
don't matter to him.
What he assigned importance to was wrong. I
That's
think-
why we see the things we see.
Yeah.
Those are the things that he deemed important.
And it was all wrong. And it wasn't worth a goddamn thing in the end. Because what does in life? Love.
I
people
always
you
think
care
that scene
about.
where he meets his second wife is so interesting.
Mhm.
And that song that's playing is "You Belong to Me" by Joe Stafford too. It's just like, okay, it's just another person to add to your day to day.
I've been with my wife for a while, right?
Really?
It's just another part of the system that Sheeran's adhering to. He's similar to Travis Bickle in that sense, where it's like he's just told, well, this is how it is, and this is what you do. Okay, you get married, you have kids, you have a house, you have a mortgage, you fucking pay your bills, you fucking work, and in my case, I paint houses.
I do my
Paint
own
them in one
carpentry.
color specifically too, and I also do my own carpentry.
I also work for the union if the cops ask.
The true fucking title of the movie. We haven't emphasized that enough. It is literally called "I Heard You Paint Houses."
That title card drop, I was like, oh, what are you, Godard? What's
Yeah.
going on? Like, this is good.
That is what Al Pacino says to Frank Sheeran on the phone.
Those are like the first words he says to him, basically.
and it's the name of the book.
Yes, it
And
is.
then they wanted it to be the name of the movie, but Netflix was like, "The Irishman."
So, and that is the only title card you get too in the movie at the very start, at the beginning.
and
is
then at the
I
end,
Heard
it
You
has
Paint Houses.
both.
Yes.
It's like he
That's what De
literally
Niro says is the
flexed.
true title of the
Yeah.
movie.
And it's like we probably should have been doing that the whole time if we were true auteur. All right, say it now and then splice in every time we said Irish. Just kidding, Jesse.
I heard you
Take you-
paint houses.
Take
Just in
9
case you get
hours.
bored.
I heard you paint houses. You have
Go.
to do it once.
Okay. I heard you paint houses. Can't laugh over it. It's not going to cut.
I know,
How's
yeah.
that going to cut?
All right, try again.
How's that going to cut?
Try again.
I heard you paint houses.
God damn it. I mean, we're usually laughing.
There might be a chuckle in there, but I'll do it.
I held it back.
Damn, it's going to take so long.
Please don't do that.
There won't be any episodes of Chronic Canon for some months. Jesse's got a backlog.
All right, listen. I feel like this is somehow relevant, so I'm just going to talk about it now. The Netflix of it all.
Oh, yeah, that is relevant.
Thank God for Netflix.
Hey,
Quite
Wait,
literally.
yes, thank God for Netflix.
Years ago, I remember sitting in a coffee shop and being like, it's the end of movies. Netflix is going to ruin them all. And now I see that they're probably the one true savior, which is fucking bananas. But they're They just have money to burn, apparently, and they're giving everyone a shot.
Everybody has Netflix.
And everybody has Netflix. It's like, it's fucking insane.
And if they don't have it, they're using someone's account.
Exactly.
Everybody has access to Netflix.
Everybody has Netflix, and they're just saying, fuck it. For some reason, they thought it was a great idea to have 400 things to release in a year. Why not? Sure. It's given home to fucking...
I heard you paint houses.
Which we would not have had without Netflix, quite literally.
Which, speaking of, the only
Because-
reason they gave him that budget.
Of $159 million.
$159 million to one man who's going to die soon.
For
I heard you paint houses.
like the least sellable movie in 2020 to a young audience.
For a 3.5-hour movie about death, they were like, yeah, here you go, buddy.
You
Go
know
he's
why?
crazy.
Because he's Martin Scorsese. It's weird. When did Netflix become the home of like art? Mank.
Listen,
Like what the fuck is going on?
We got Mank might be our Irishman this year.
I hope.
There's
the
literally
trailer
a
doesn't
line
look
in the
good.
trailer. How do you capture a man's life in 2 hours?
you guys gonna fucking make me watch Mank? It looks
Yes,
like
you're
the
gonna
most...
love it.
Listen, I'm
You
all
like
for it.
Citizen Kane.
Okay, I told you I like Citizen Kane, and I also told you it's fucking boring.
David
but the moment
Fincher. David Fincher. You trust the
got-
Finch.
you guys, it's one of those movies where I was gonna be like, yeah, I'm sure it's great, and then never fucking watch it. It just looks so
Brandon,
boring.
Brandon.
Please don't do this.
I agree. I don't think it looks good, but I will never doubt David Fincher knows what I need better than I do. He knows better than we do, and I'm going to trust him forever, just like Sassy. After The Irishman, are you kidding me? I will be there day one. What do you need? I'm here. You had to say something. David Fincher hasn't made a movie in 6 years. You think he's not fucking like, hey, you need this. Sorry, I was gone
All
so
of
long.
the early Mank reviews are good.
That's all I'm saying.
What is Fincher made?
7,
Seven,
The
Gone Girl,
Game,
Zodiac?
Zodiac,
Zodiac. Oh, I've seen 3.
The Girl
Social
with the
Network?
Dragon Tattoo, Social Network,
Panic Room?
Alien 3,
Benjamin Button.
Madonna music videos.
Yeah, right. That's
So that's like what, 8?
11. Wait, is it?
Oh, fucking no, I'm not counting right now.
Yeah, I'm getting real hot. We sparked a blunt not too long ago, and it is.
I mean, it's the Irishman. We got to do it.
I know.
You guys are wearing the shirts.
I know.
Hear that, Tyler? They're wearing the shirts.
Hey, I was right. Mank's Hey, Tyler.
How's it going?
Mank. Fuck. Mank is number 11.
Still
Too
10
high.
Ain't,
That's
10
why I
ain't
said
bad.
fuck.
10 ain't bad.
Yeah. So you're gonna watch Mank. It's gonna be fine. Why did we start
Three-
talking about fuck? Oh, because Netflix.
Yeah.
3 of the 10 movies he's made, I do think are phenomenal.
Only reason the movie has Netflix. $159 million. That's fucking crazy. They released it in the theaters so it can be Oscar player. It made $8 million in theaters, which is crazy, actually. When you think about it, a movie that everybody could just watch on Netflix still made $8 million. Like, in perspective, that's insane.
That
And
is 2 Scorsese.
did not know this. There's an asterisk here, but it's still in their top 10 of like most watched original movies.
That's crazy.
It's number 10, but I do think that, or no, Netflix originals, not even movies, originals. It is number 10 right now, but there's an asterisk there. The number that they have is 64 million people have watched it, but they
doesn't
changed
qualify as the whole movie.
they changed their metrics. So it used to be you had to watch 70% of a movie or of something for it to count as a view. And it was like that the first week it came out. And it's still 26.4 million people. 26.4 million people the first week of The Irishman watched at least 70% of it. That's pretty dope in 2020.
oh, yeah.
But they changed it to now it's just 2 minutes. If you watch something for 2 minutes, it counts as a view. So it's like, that's kind of cheating.
That's fucking insane.
It's to boost their numbers so they can keep getting money from investors, I'm sure.
I mean, I guess fuck it then.
Yeah, I know. If it gets me another Irishman, I love it.
Yes, fuck it, man. Isn't Apple doing Killer and Flower Moon?
Yep, and they give him $200 million. Everybody, the world's ending. I don't know.
I think
Martin
that-
Scorsese got $200 million by Apple.
Hey.
What does that fucking mean?
I
It
think-
means Leonardo DiCaprio's in the movie.
It doesn't. Just like, what is that sentence? What
Robert
is
De
that
Niro and Leonardo DiCaprio and Martin Scorsese.
$200 million
from
Right
Apple.
now, that is a sellable movie. Any Leonardo DiCaprio movie.
I understand. Just like this is the world where, like, Martin Scorsese movie might not come out in theaters, but gets $200 million from Apple.
It'll come out in
2021,
theaters.
Martin Scorsese. I don't know, man.
I
That
know.
just feels crazy.
It's just like that's not real.
No.
But okay, it is. That's our world.
I do think
Thank God for Apple.
Yeah.
Like, what? Sure.
And Netflix.
And Netflix.
Thank
Like,
God for streaming, I guess.
No, I think it's the future. But wait in the future.
Wait,
future.
I don't know. I'm just
You've broken
freaking
us,
out.
Martin.
$200 million. For what is that?
I just feel like part of the thing with Netflix is since it's a streaming service and it doesn't have like I don't know, just like a core like being, it's able to be like a global thing. Like they have like studios all over the world making shit, so it never feels like one thing. Like one thing is pumping it out, and that one thing is Netflix. But Netflix gets to be like so much more. Like something
like Hollywood.
like something movie studios like just like aren't. Like a studio has to work within a studio, and it's not like this Paramount Studios. Is there like a bunch? Like all over the world? Or is there like a Paramount studio? Because maybe I'm thinking about
there's
like
Paramount Studios, like the lot.
Right, but I think
Sound stages,
have to
production
have-
company.
But okay,
when I think-
what you're getting into is like you'll big companies like that. It's like any conglomerate. They own a bunch of small studios where they do things out of. Just like Netflix isn't making all originals, they'll buy things from studios.
yeah.
It's its own weird ecosystem. I think there's technically would be one. There would like have to be like one Paramount studio, but then they'll have a bunch of studios.
Right. It just feels to me like Netflix has the
Or
ability
just other productions.
that that a normal studio wouldn't by Netflix being like its own studio. Like I don't know, it's literally like all over like the world.
Yeah.
There's a Netflix studio making a movie, but for like not even just like for worldwide, like for that region. Like you have like Canada only Netflix, where there's movies that only Canadians get, and that means that there are Netflix originals that only Canadians get. Canadian movies made by Canadians, and it's not just that country; it's all over the world that they're able to do that with, and it's because Netflix is this one thing that everybody has access to. It's not like a studio that's, like stuck in America and has to market itself to other countries. It's like Netflix doesn't have to market to China because Netflix already is like in China. People have Netflix.
Right.
Whereas like you can't just like have a studio.
That is going to be why movie theaters won't go away and other movie studios aren't. I just had the thought of like, that's kind of scary. Like, God bless them because we got the Irishman. Like, fuck, forever. But then it's like, okay, now you're talking in a way where it's like everything just then becomes Netflix eventually. And it's like, in one world, yes, but like I think you'll always have studios fighting for like, we just released movies in theaters. And it's like, oh, I guess we'll go see those now.
Yeah, and plus,
And then 10 years from now, it'll be on Netflix.
other streaming platforms are also like coming and going. Obviously, Netflix has a stronghold, but also Netflix has a stronghold because one, it got the jump on it, and two, it had like a nostalgia factor almost. Like every time when Netflix first hopped on streaming service, people were like, I remember getting my disc in the mail.
I do.
It's like if Blockbuster had started a streaming service,
Yes.
if Family Video had started a streaming service,
There's a chance they would be it right now.
both of those would have blown up.
Right.
So I feel like once people sort of get past that sort of like, well, we've always had Netflix, they'll be able to see other streaming platforms that are trying new things and possibly doing better.
I was going to say everything comes to an end. Like, it's not going to, like, one day Netflix won't be a thing because there'll be a new thing that's better. That's just how progress works. Unless we blow ourselves over or something. But to the greater point of it all, it's like, we got the Irishman.
Thank you, Netflix. We got
literally
the
can't get over it because it's like, this wouldn't exist without it. Like, nobody was giving them the money.
Even the small rollout that they gave it with those like theatrical releases in New York at the Belasco and stuff like that, like all the special stuff that was going on, the phone booths they had in the lobby that were like themed for the Irishman that played the trailer inside of them, and then the newspapers, which we still have.
Mm-hmm.
There's a phone number you can call, 313-91-HOFFA. You can still call that number and it will give you some sort of Irishman bullshit straight up.
I think it's lines from the movie. It's like Hoffa on the phone with Sharon.
Yeah, you can like listen to it. It's funny. So if you ever need a kick out of that, you can go ahead and give it a ring.
Should we call him right now?
No. But later. But yeah.
I don't know. It's just I had a thought I wanted to connect outside of the Netflix thing. Like I was like, there's a big reason we're talking about this. like, am glad that there is still enough of an audience. It gives hope. I feel hope for the future of movies for the first time in a long time, while I feel hope for almost nothing else. And it's weird because it's usually been the inverse. I guess reality's catching up or movies are getting ahead. Sassy was 25 when he made Who's That Knocking on My Door? Now he is 77 and has The Irishman. Just like, it takes a life, and then you'll see it and you'll be done. And yes, we're going to let Grandpa keep making movies, but this was the last thing he had to say for sure. I don't care how amazing Killer of the Flower Moon is. He did it. It's over. Everything else is just like a bonus. It's an epilogue.
We talked about the Kurosawa talking to Bergman note before on the podcast.
We did last episode.
Okay. Do you have the letter pulled up? Because you can just read it.
All right. Dear Mr. Bergman, this is Akira Kurosawa, an old man. He's very old. Oh, he says how old he is later. Okay. Please let me congratulate you upon your 70th birthday. Your work deeply touches my heart every time I see it, and I have learned a lot from your works and have been encouraged by them. I would like you to stay in good health to create more wonderful movies for us. In Japan, there was a great artist called Tessa Tomioka, who lived in the Meiji era. I don't know, the late 19th century. This artist painted many excellent pictures while he was still young, and when he reached the age of 80, he suddenly started painting pictures which were much superior to the previous ones, as if he were in magnificent bloom. Every time I see his paintings, I fully realize that a human is not really capable of creating really good works until he reaches 80. A human is born a baby, becomes a boy, goes through youth, the prime of life, and finally returns to being a baby before he closes his life. This is, in my opinion, the most ideal way of life. I believe you would agree that a human becomes capable of producing pure works without any restriction in the days of his second babyhood. I am now 77 years old and am convinced that my real work is just beginning. Let us hold out together for the sake of movies. With the warmest regards, Akira Kurosawa.
Beautiful.
That's what The Irishman is to me. Like, he is talking to us.
That's how I felt too.
It's just like he's done or he's just starting.
Yeah.
That's scarier. What the fuck else could he do?
Well, Killer Flower Moon, $200 million.
Whoa.
And the old and the new colliding, De Niro and DiCaprio.
Whoa.
The movie starts with DiCaprio blowing coke up De Niro's ass.
I would leave the theater, buy another ticket, and just wait to start again. And be like, you deserve more money, and I will try again.
I was just sorry. I knew I was gonna love this movie, but I'm sorry I wasn't happy enough. One more time.
So
if DiCaprio snorted coke out of De Niro's ass, I would pay so much.
You heard him, Marty.
Like, what?
You haven't started filming yet. It's possible.
Just do it. Just do it.
anyway,
don't be afraid.
Yeah,
It's
there's
also-
a potential that he's just starting based off of that. And also, I like that, great directors are capable of recognizing one another. And it seems like it's a pretty common thing.
Yeah.
Like that, I feel like art is always a competition. And especially like right now in our capitalist society,
Yeah.
art is a competition in terms of like, your art didn't make as much money as my art.
Right.
So it's like,
Or even a competition for attention.
exactly. So to see, great artists, great directors that are also competing, being able to recognize and acknowledge and come together over their work, I think
Martin Scorsese
speaks to the power of cinema.
He's a very big proponent for young filmmakers, and he gives as many a chance as he can.
That's what I was about to bring up.
Uncut Gem.
The Uncut Gems, Ari Aster and him are like best friends now
I
because he
saw
just
some.
loves his movies.
Saw some interview
So
with
weird.
Marty where he was talking to somebody about Hereditary. I think it was the Film Society at Lincoln Center or whatever.
Yeah.
And he says something about like, what he's doing in the scene is similar to something you would do. And then Martin Scorsese's like, yeah, he's a fucking kid. And like, it took me 25 years to get to that. Like, he's pissed.
He's literally obsessed with that Hereditary and really liked Midsommar. Like
He also really loves The Souvenir too, which is a movie
I was about to bring that up.
lukewarm on.
Yeah,
but still weird movie.
She's older, but he's finally giving her like a second life now because he's like, everybody should be watching these movies. What the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like those are the three people, at least recently, he's really championed and been like, everybody should be watching their movies. So maybe we should be paying more attention. Safdie-Sese and Hogg.
He did produce Joker too.
Who?
Yeah, but he even said it wasn't. He didn't see it.
So crazy.
I don't think producing has anything to do with it. I think it's when it's like I'm at the Film Society at Lincoln Center
Right.
And I'm going to sit here to talk about fucking Hereditary when I
Yeah.
could talk about any movie I want.
I know.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that motherfucker was like, this is good.
Yeah.
I love him.
But I think even more evident that
Marty.
this movie's just an all-time banger, jammer, whatever
Yeah,
you
what
want to
the
call it.
What the fuck, Brandon?
It's it's got that cut to black, man. It's got that. It fucking listened. It fucking listened to me. It told me that it would cut to black.
Because that's all there was left to
And
say.
it did it.
I just wanted to make sure we sparked a really good conversation,
I think we did.
and we did, and I'm happy about it. I don't regret scaring you.
So should we get blunt?
Is it time? I mean,
The last
Are we
time we
still
get blunt
doing
for
a-
Sassy?
Whoa. No.
yes.
Yeah.
We're going to get blunt with
No,
our friends
it's
on
the wrap
episode
They'll
up.
get
two.
blunt, but not us.
We've already been blunt.
We've
This
been
is-
blunt for 25 episodes.
I guess we have the netting of like we can still talk next episode. So if we think of something more we wish we said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've
We
been
have a
talking for
safety net.
nearly 3 hours. We're
Really?
We're nearly there.
Yes, like we're almost there.
I for sure thought we were at only 2.
No.
Wowzer.
Well over 2.
I mean, hey, it's like the Irishman. Time
know.
flies by.
Is there anything else? I've said it all that I need to say right now.
I mean, there's definitely stuff you
wait,
two.
but I
us
don't
three-
want to say goodbye.
Too bad.
I
We'll
don't
leave the
either.
door open on the pot a little,
Leave the door
little
open a
more.
little
That's what our
bit.
second
That's
episode
what the
is.
second- yeah, we got
literally-
one more coming.
We're leaving the door,
Door open a little bit.
We don't want to be done.
Now with the
Guys.
Irishman. Now with the Irishman, I don't want to be done.
I guess we're going to spend a little more time being blunt.
Yeah,
These
let's be
are
blunt.
our final words. I'm not ready. Somebody else talk. I can't. What is that?
It's the
We'll
end,
see.
It's the end music from a previous podcast.
That's hilarious.
Or that's Wolf of Wall Street.
That's hilarious. Okay. I don't know how to be blunt. I can't. I already have. We've all been blunt.
All right, so
Brandon, I want you to be blunt because I want to know if you were being serious or if you were literally just saying that to get the conversation juicy.
it was both. Like, I didn't know if I liked The Irishman or if I just loved it because we all did. Like, I don't know. It was one of those weird things where it's been a year
You were
and
loving
talking
it.
about it. Shut the fuck up and let me talk. We've been talking about it for a whole goddamn year, and it's just like you get this idea. You get this idea in your head of like what it's gonna be in that moment, kind of like you're losing your virginity. You know, you get this idea of what it's gonna be, and it's so different. And then your mom calls you, and it's like, "What movie am I watching?" But you know, I didn't know whether or not it was gonna be like my favorite because, like, yeah, it's the best Martin Scorsese movie. Like, that's like. Refuting that would be stupid, and I'm sorry for spooking you guys earlier, but in terms of like my favorite, that's something that I legit didn't know because there's been plenty of movies in his canon that I've really, really enjoyed for a variety of different reasons.
Mhm.
So it's like, all right, I can recognize this movie is great, and it won't be my favorite, but I also know that like. That can't be true, right? Like, I love The Irishman. So I decided to leave it up in the air. And we've been talking about it for nearly 3 hours, and it's like, I haven't done that for anything else. Haven't wanted to stop at any point, and also I could literally go downstairs and watch The Irishman right now. So, like, it's probably sitting at number 3. I'm just kidding. You know the deal. You know the deal.
Frank's crying.
I feel like I could. It's there. It's sitting there. The tears are literally there. Just trying to think about this movie.
All right, go, Jesse.
I don't know.
It's a top 5 all-time movie for
Is
me.
it?
Oh, yeah. It's one of the most important movies in my life. I love this movie more than most things. I will cherish it. I have 2 T-shirts for this movie already. It's only been out for a year. I have 3 lobby cards. I have a newspaper in a frame with my first ticket on the wall. I'm looking at it right now. I love this. It's a part of me. This movie's a part of me. It means everything. Just like Frank, it exemplifies much of what I am afraid of in this life. And it is a very stark experience every time I've returned to it. But it is one of the most masterfully constructed pieces of filmmaking I have ever laid my eyes on. And that is a fucking fact. No question about it. Scorsese fucking did it. I remember we said that too. Said the same thing after the end of The Return with David Lynch. But with this too, it's just that I don't know how else to explain it other than he did it. He just did it. And I don't know if that means anything to anyone.
No, it means everything.
But he did it. Fuck.
The perfect encapsulation.
He fucking did it. Wow. I can't believe he did. It's like, okay, I actually think about this. I think about the story where John Ford and Howard Hawks were sitting across from each other on the set of Rio Lobo, I think. And it's like, because somebody asked him, did you guys ever have a rivalry? You know, because you were such titans of filmmaking and you never, talk about that. You know, did you ever like get jealous of each other? And he's like, we never really, this is Howard Hawks talking. He's like, we never really did anything like that. But there was one time he was on the set with me and we were eating lunch and out of nowhere, we weren't talking. And just out of nowhere, he just looked up at me and he said, "You son of a bitch." And he just looked back down and kept eating, and that was it. And that was, he's like, and I think that was him being like, you're good, you motherfucker. And then apparently the same thing later happened to Peter Bogdanovich when he screamed, "What's up, Doc?" Frank Capra walked out of the theater, just looked at him and said, "You son of a bitch." And I feel like that's the same equivalent of me saying, he fucking did it, motherfucker. Like, goddamn. He did it.
Game recognizes game.
Game recognizes game.
Dude, what's the fucking scene in Aviator where Howard Hughes goes to the theater and he's like, I need sound. This is great. I need sound in my movie.
That's the
He remakes the movie.
Yeah. Oh, I see. We gotta start over.
Real recognize real, man. Game recognize game. So, all right, Frank, shut the fuck up.
I've already done it.
Come on.
I've already done it.
I don't care. Come on.
It's top 10.
Come
it makes
on.
me cry like a fucking baby.
Why do you love it?
I said it all.
If no one could hear you talk about The Irishman again, if they could only listen to this last little bit, they could only listen to you be blunt, say what you love about The Irishman.
Because it's ruminating in the pain of existence.
Done. All right. Is it in the canon?
Oh, yeah.
No. We all said no because we have so many other Martin Scorsese movies in the canon
that represent the same things.
That they all sort of, when you combine them, they are The Irishman. So why do we need it?
This is such a complicated thing I just thought of.
Is Frank Sheeran gay?
No.
I know. I've thought about this a lot.
Should it be in the
I've
canon,
thought about this a lot. He was in love with Jimmy.
Stop.
They should have kissed.
Not if it should be in the canon. It's obviously in the canon. But like for half a second, I was like, if there was one Sassy movie I want anybody to watch, it's this. But then it's like,
no.
Does it hit without anything else?
It did. Brandon is the proof.
It's in the canon. This is the best movie.
It's the best movie.
Like at this point, I think my 10 favorite movies are all my one favorite movie. And I'm just like, damn it. And it's up there. It's the best. What's better?
Scorsese's. I mean, like.
Nothing but a few things, but not really.
It's like there's Fanny and Alexander. There's this.
As your favorite movie?
No, I mean, just like as far as those those final notes or what feel like they should be,
Yeah. So yeah.
There's Eyes Wide Shuts.
It's in the fucking canon.
And on that note,
fucking canon. What else?
I think that might be it.
No reason to stay. I'm sure we all have more to say, but we
have a whole other episode
to Martin Scorsese.
Don't worry, everyone. We'll definitely have another episode about The Irishman where we'll be grilling some of our friends as to their thoughts and why they also agree that it is the greatest movie of all time. And then following that, we'll kind of wrap up our feelings on Scorsese as a whole. We'll run down some of our sort of awards, as it were, and deem what is the best of the best in terms of the canon. If we created a Scorsese greatest hits record, what goes on that record?
Spoiler alert, actually every episode after this is going to be about The Irishman.
Bum, bum, bum.
I mean, it probably could.
For real.
But yes, on the Sassy wrap-up episode, we're going to do our, I guess we should name it. Is it the Canon Awards? The Canon Awards? The Chronic
That should
Awards?
be the wrap-up. The wrap-up? The roll-up?
Oh.
The roll-up.
The roll-up.
Nice.
The Sassy roll-up. Good job.
Thank you.
But on that episode, we will also be revealing
Who's next?
who is next.
Yeah.
So we've
give us your guesses.
Give us your score guesses.
Score guesses.
Scorsese. Scorsese. There it is. Scorsese who follows Scorsese, baby.
Hashtag.
I have one thing to ask.
What's that?
Stop. How do you feel right now?
I feel okay.
Right? I just feel like, okay, like I'm happy we did it, and I'm like, think this went pretty all right, but I'm sad it's over.
Me too.
But
It's
also,
like the Irishman.
I've literally been depressed since we watched this. I was on a streak of just like good days, feeling good about life.
It was literally just like a riding high.
Just feeling like good about
I
myself.
love myself for the first time in a long time.
And just trying my hardest. And literally since this movie, I've been like, fucking just fuck, man.
What is anything worth?
Hey, that was me when I watched Fanny and Alexander earlier this year. I was like, I
Great.
can't.
I feel good. Things are good, okay.
Yep.
Just fuck this.
I feel like the
movie.
dog in the room with the coffee that's on fire and everything is fine.
I guess I feel good. You guys feel good?
I feel good about you
Man.
too.
I'm
I
really
love you
excited.
guys.
I'm really excited. To
This
go
movie is
downstairs
exemplary of my love for you.
and do the hug.
Are we going to watch Heat?
I'm ready.
I
for
would
the hug.
if
I'm
you
ready-
would.
I'm ready for the 3-person
gonna do
hug
it?
where we all put our heads together and I get to go. We did it. We fucking did it.
And then we go, let's fucking run.
Let's fucking
fucking
run.
Let's fucking run.
Do we watch the next movie?
All right, fucking, we're done. We're done. The episode is over.
Okay.
We're out of here.
I'm Frank.
I'm Jesse.
I'm Brandon. We're signing off.
Adios.
Goodbye.
And bye-bye.
And bye-bye.
Wait a future.
Wait a future.
Wait a
Leave the
future.
door open just a crack.
We promise to leave it open. Just a crack.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I don't like it. It's open.
Wait, episode back on. Episode back.
Show-do.
Do. Fucking end it.